Hello and welcome to Bergkamp Wonderland, an Arsenal podcast. Let's be fair, Gunners, it's been a dog shit week. It's not been good, is it? But look on the bright side, at least you're not Chris Carpenter, who's a fanboy of Francis Coquelin. There is a bright light at the end of the tunnel. All right, I'm Jason, I'm your host. Tonight we have with me Daniel. Daniel the GFP.
Jason.
How are you?
I'm not the GFP, that's my car, which is currently at the Mercedes garage, and I reckon I'm not going to get much change out of 1,500 quid for fixing it. It's for sale if anybody wants it. I only want 20 grand for it.
20 grand for that?
Oi, they only made 41 of them. It's a limited edition.
You're
Classic.
limited.
Fucking I am very limited in many ways.
Honestly, you're such a tosser today.
I know.
You've been winding me up all day. You okay?
I'm going to find out where you live and tickle you. Yes, I'm fine. Shana's sat on the sofa and she's been really quiet. What are you doing? Reading? Oh, she's watching Netflix. Jeez, I think she might even be chilling. Hey, see what I did there?
Hiya, Sean. How are you?
Jason says hello. Get on with it.
Hello.
Just because you're her favourite.
Damn right. I've got to be somebody's favourite. Nobody loves me anymore. Not even my mum. Okay. This is Daniel, the GFP. Whenever you refer to him on Twitter, please call him Daniel. It winds him up no end. Also, send him pictures of empty electric sockets that are switched on. That really does his tits in.
I hate you.
It really pisses me off. My girlfriend always switches off all of the electrical switches. So I come home drunk at night, put my phone on charge and wake up and it's only 2% bloody battery.
That's why plugs have switches, Fife. That's why.
Yeah, you do realise as well, you're batting way above your weight there. The lady Shah is just, poof, she out of your league, bro.
Bro, I've already told you, this is going through my headphones. You're not on speaker, so...
Oh, okay. There you go, listeners. Here he is, Harry Potter's better-looking brother. It's Andrew Fife. How are you, Andrew?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm very good, mate. I'm spoken to in ages, so it's a bit of a pleasure.
Well, I've just cracked open a bottle of Pinot Noir to myself, so this pod may become more and more sweary down the line as we get there. So it's a fun and games I'm looking to overcome with you tonight.
Well, to be fair, mate, the only way is down. This week's been one of those weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm actually looking at photos of God Manchester on Wikipedia, and the causeway looks nice, Dan. It looks like a Cambridgeshire version of Amsterdam.
That's where Sexy Frank lives, on the causeway.
Sexy Frank.
Hey, don't mess with Sexy Frank.
Sounds like a star.
To be fair, okay, Sexy Frank, Mick Dagger, greatest friends' names ever.
That is actually Mick's surname, Dagger. He's postman in Bolton, if anyone knows him. We have many listeners from Bolton.
No, I don't think we do.
No, none.
In any case, on to our next guest. Well, like in the medieval times, a knight protecting a maiden's honour, he's been batting for Arsene Wenger all week. It's Geoff Arsenal.
Jace, how you doing?
I'm very well, mate. It's been too long, pal. You okay?
It's been a long while, mate, hasn't it? Indeed. Yeah. And I like your opener. I mean, I'll tell you how it gets, okay? At the final, just before the final whistle, I thought, the Bayern game the other night, I walked out, and as I got out, I couldn't get the 4G straight away, but as I just about 250 yards or meters or whatever away from the stadium, boom, I opened up Twitter, and I don't know, I think there was about 34 abuse messages.
And they were just from Jason.
Yeah, and it's fantastic, isn't it? It's fantastic. So I've been fighting fires all week as normal. What can you do?
To be fair, mate, I was abusing Barcelona last night because I particularly detest that club. Okay, I fucking hate them. And BBC Sport retweeted something along the lines of, "We're looking forward to coming to Cardiff." So I just tweeted back, "Fuck off, we don't want you here. We want Real." Some guy called me a clueless. See you next Tuesday.
Oh, he listens to the pod then?
Then blocked me.
Jesus.
But you've had a tough weekend, haven't you, G?
Yeah, well, you've got to carry on, haven't you, mate? We'll obviously discuss it. We'll discuss it, obviously, in the pod, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be interesting tonight, because we normally have quite a fiery pod once we have a couple of defeats, and I'll be there defending. Don't worry.
We've all got views in it, haven't we? We'll delve into that in a bit. And on to our final guest. It was International Women's Day yesterday, and so we have the finest lady in Arsenal football land with us. It's Sophie Nicolau, how are you, Soph?
I'm very well, lads. How are you? I'm a bit of a fangirl, so I'm very thankful and appreciative to be invited on the show, and loving what you guys do, and looking forward to talking a little bit of Arsenal with you.
I've just blushed.
Have you?
Yeah, no, I can't believe it. We've actually got a fan. I don't believe it. Yeah, Sophie. Sorry, it's fangirl. I don't behave. As you're a friend of the Stars, tell the lovely listeners about yourself.
Sure. I grew up, born and bred in North London, Palmer's Green, otherwise known as Palmer's Greek. And I kind of worked in the film industry for a lot of years for 20th Century Fox and Sony Pictures, and radio's always been a passion of mine. I hosted a show on London Greek radio when I was a teenager, and did that for a few years. Loved working in the film industry, wanted to get into football and sports a little bit more. So was able to do that through radio and stuff. And eventually my career brought me out here to California. And I co-hosted a live daily show called World Football Daily for a few years, which was a lot of fun. And actually one of the first women out here in the US to be talking live football every single day on a live show. So I'm kind of proud of that. And then have hosted a podcast over the last couple of years for the USA Today. And just, really love the entertainment industry, still do that. I've worked on some really amazing films and looked after some amazing people throughout my career. And now just enjoying the side of football here from the US as well. So it's been a lot of fun, and I just love the game. I love Arsenal, and it's a little bit tricky with the position that we're in right now, but got to stay and support the club and try and be as positive as possible, even though I've ripped a few, arseholes over the last few weeks. I'm not going to lie.
Well, Geoff does that on a regular basis, to be fair. So, you've dealt with some big names, as I said, Friend of the Stars and Steven Gerrard. So you've dealt with a number of the Galaxy boys. So, you get to know people inside of football as well.
Yeah, definitely. The culture here is so different. It's amazing because, in the European game, the journalists, the media don't get to go in the changing room after, and that culture here is in baseball and American football, and also in MLS as well. So I cover the Galaxy quite a bit, and during David Beckham's time especially, I did that quite extensively for TalkSport. So to be able to kind of go into the dressing room after a game and have direct contact with the players. Last time I was there, I was talking to Steven Gerrard about Sunday roast dinners. He really missed being at home, and he gravitated a lot to anyone who had an English accent. So, I was so happy when Arsenal came here last summer because, to be able to see the team train and see them up close and personal, because I hadn't done that in a few years living here. Even though I come to, the games as much as I can when I travel home. Ashley Cole turned up actually at the preseason training, and I didn't know whether I should throw darts at him or what.
Sophie, bricks. Throw bricks at him. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Next time I know.
It's quite funny. I did an American podcast last week, or earlier on this week, called Gooners in the USA, and their appetite for the Arsenal is quite fantastic. One of the groups held their own little Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and there's some pictures up on Twitter of that, and it's fantastic. So there's a great appetite out there for the Arsenal, isn't there?
Yeah, there's the Arsenal America group down in the valley here. They get a boatload of people. There's up in San Francisco, the Bay Gooners as well. See them a lot, and in New York, the support for the club here is incredible. People love not only the history of Arsenal, and the thing with American fans too is they're really smart. They're really into tactics, and I think that comes from the X's and O's in American football. They're bright. They study the game, and they really know their history. Obviously, the infusion of the Premier League has changed a lot in terms of people's knowledge. And when I first moved here, I could barely find a game on TV, to be honest with you. And now I really believe that the coverage ESPN and Fox and some of those other channels have kind of invested in has really helped MLS grow here as well. But as much as MLS is growing, and as Simon Cooper wrote in his book Soccernomics, that it would become one of the biggest leagues in the world in years to come. He actually predicted that for the US and for China. It's the Premier League is massive here. And the preseason games, I know it sometimes, people in Europe get a little bit spoiled because you get to see the teams week in, week out, and the preseason stuff maybe doesn't matter as much. But it really matters when they travel here. So when Arsenal came here last summer, it was amazing. And Real Madrid have been here, and Barcelona, and a lot of great teams. So it's fun, and the game continues to grow, and American fans are embracing it.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that's Sophie. That's our clue for tonight. Let's get straight into it, guys. On Saturday, we went up to Mordor to see the Scousers. It wasn't pretty. Firmino opened the scoring. It was just... it wasn't the best day of my life. Fifey, start us off. Tell us what you thought about it.
I mean, where'd you start with this one? I think the thing is, when the team sheet came out an hour before the game, as it always does, we all looked at that team sheet and we were surprised. And it's not one of those where, not least obviously because Alexis and Ozil aren't playing for whichever reason, but you look at it and you think, right, we've had 12 days off, 12 days to really study Liverpool's game, 12 days to tactically analyse them. And we've put out a team which really doesn't make sense. And obviously, Geoff and the others, you can come in and maybe disagree. But I think if you look at anyone who's been watching Liverpool this year, we know that Liverpool have been very susceptible and very vulnerable to players with pace. Even, earlier that week, Leicester ripped them apart by putting Vardy in between their centre-backs because they got two big old boys who are huge lumbering centre-backs without much pace. And, they've have Milner playing wing-back. They've been absolutely flooded by teams. And we've gone up there and we've set out to play what we've described as direct football. And that's quite disappointing to me because for me, it kind of shows where we haven't really spent much time tactically analysing how to beat Liverpool. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and say I can do Wenger's job for him. I can't. But I do think we have made a massive mistake there. And okay, he's going to drop Alexis for whatever reason, and that's fine. But why doesn't Theo Walcott start? Why don't we start Oxlade-Chamberlain in the middle? Why aren't we dynamic? The first half alone, Mustafi literally hoofed the ball. I mean, literally hoofed the ball to Giroud 7 times. And I believe Giroud didn't win it once. And we were literally playing into Liverpool's hands. They lapped that up. What we called direct football on the weekend would have been the tactics that Bolton would have used against us, 12, 13 years ago. And Arsenal fans, and specifically Wenger in the press, would have probably been sneering at it, looking down on that kind of football. It really was unelegant and disorganised football. We've stuck with Iwobi and Coquelin in midfield, and bless them both. They love the club, but they're both very much out of form. I think Iwobi, he's young, and you don't want to cope him because he's got a lot of talent, but he's clearly at a period, I think, where he needs to be rested, and he's out of form. But we're overplaying him, and likewise, Coquelin's been a big liability for us in the middle for a few months now. And Oxlade-Chamberlain, he played fantastic there against Hull in a couple of weeks ago, and again he's been put out wide, and there's not much pace. I mean, Welbeck's got some pace, but is he that fast on the ball? Not really. You've got Giroud up front, who's got very little pace, and he's not, he's not got that ability to beat players. Chamberlain, again, he's one of those. He's fast with the ball, but on the wing, I feel he's a bit wasted. And we were really disorganised. Coutinho was ripping us apart. Firmino was ripping us apart. They looked far more organised. And I'm not one of those guys who cares too much about, passion and desire. But when one team clearly has so much superior level of passion and desire in such a big game, it is disappointing. Liverpool were there for the, look at Liverpool's form, look at our thought, okay, we've lost 5 out of the last 7 games, but it's not as though Liverpool are setting the world at a light at this point in time. And in terms of where we sit in the league, we kind of dropped into 5th, and yes, we've got a game in hand, but if we won that game and won our game in hand, we would have put a nice, cushion between us and ultimately 5th place. And we've not, we've messed and it really was a shambles. And then, you know, at half time he's brought Alexis on, and whether that's because, you know, he's felt, you know, we're lacking up front, or whether it's because he's, you know, genuinely seen that Koch was having a stinker. And at one point, which really summarised the first half for me, was, I believe it might have been Monreal played a ball to Coquelin on the edge of our area, maybe 5 yards out of our area. It was a terrible ball. It was at ankle height, although nonetheless, Koch was in space, and all he had to do was bring it down, just trap it and bring it down and play it out. And he literally hoofed it up above his own head, about 20 yards above his own head. And it gave time for, honestly, it gave Coutinho a chance to come in and they had a pop shot. And we barely attacked their goal. I mean, it was diabolical. And you know, the fact that we have reverted to Mustafi hoofing the ball to Giroud is not acceptable. And obviously we'll come on to the Bayern Munich game and the sheer contrast between the first half against Liverpool and the first half against Bayern, I'm sure, because, you know, but why are we not playing Theo Walcott? You know, he's been one of our best big game players this season. Why is Chamberlain not in the middle to help, you know, create a compact middle? I just don't understand that piece. Second half, Sanchez has come on, and we do look like a more well-balanced team. Yeah, and you don't want to blame the ref too much because we're in terrible form. But yes, I do think Emre Can should have been sent off for that second yellow. I think that was a ridiculous decision. And one thing, this is another thing which I want to point out: Arsenal players, and we talked about this. Arsenal players, as a team, we do not get enough of our team in the face of the referee to make him change, you know, to impact. You've seen in the week, listen, Martinez, Alonso, and a couple of others got in the referee's face, and he sent Koscielny off. We see it all the time. Players get into the ref's face in their 6s and 7s. We never really do that. And even as fans at the Emirates, we only ever get irate when a keeper takes too long on the ball. We need to be, you know, getting in the ref's face. And it was only Xhaka who actually said something. And he ends up getting booked for dissent because we're not acting like that. We need to be more together in that kind of situation.
You know, I think Fifey's made some great points there. Okay, you know, team selection for me, bang on. The slow start. You know, I mean, what does Lucas Perez have to do to get a game? Does he have to shag Wenger or what?
Well, listen, you know, it's difficult, isn't it? Because again,
bear with me a second, Geoff. I want you to answer a couple of points here. Okay, I know you're going to say it's difficult. Okay, but Perez this season has shown great intent and has been involved in some really good stuff. Okay, Iwobi and Coquelin have both been out of form majorly. You know, Francis Coquelin is like that gif of the horse falling over the ball at the moment. Okay, Iwobi's not been involved in the game. On Saturday, I think it was 30-odd passes he had. You know, whenever the ball was hoofed up to Olivier Giroud, he was nowhere to be seen for the knockdown. Yeah, Emre Can had all the time in the world. I'm not, you know, you don't have to answer for Arsene Wenger, but in your opinion, you know, where does he see continuing to choose players who are out of form, who are not impacting on games? How can he justify that? What do you think? Not from an Arsene Wenger perspective, but you.
I see how I see it is that it's easy enough for us, and you know, I've said similar things over the years, you know, to me pals and all that. How can he do this and how can he do that? But you know what we've got to remember is that Arsene Wenger sees the players in training every single day. He knows how they're performing. He knows what their mood's like, and you know, just exactly how they're performing. And you know, if he's choosing Iwobi over Perez, there's obviously a reason for it. He's the manager and he's in charge of it. Whether or not it's right or not, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure Perez. You know, going up to Liverpool is very, very difficult anyway, because you know for sure. I know they got trunked by Leicester a few days before, but you know, especially because they've been beat by Leicester, they're going to be wounded from that. Now they've got Arsenal, you know, in a few days' time, and you know for sure that they always turn up against Arsenal. It's always a difficult game. Liverpool do turn it on against the big sides generally, especially at Anfield, and it does get loud. And if they start playing well, they get the whole of Anfield. It does make a lot of noise there, and it's very, very difficult. The game itself, I think we was just woeful the first half. I do. See, this is another thing. Wenger, sometimes he's damned if he does and he's damned if he doesn't, because, everyone says, we can only play one way. It gets on my nerves. We should try different things and that. All of a sudden, he wants to. Liverpool are very good against, especially a team that likes to play the ball out of the back. They know that we play the ball out of the back. We're a footballing team. That Gegenpress sometimes, and it has killed us in the past. It killed us at our gaff this year at the start of the season. That press. And it done for us. We wasn't that quite good on the ball and kept on giving it away. And unfortunately, that did us in. He didn't want to have that at Anfield. So he thought, okay, we're going to go long. We'll shoot it long for the first 20 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes or whatever. And I could see where he's coming from. Unfortunately, in hindsight, it didn't work out because we was terrible in that first half. And it did get us into the second half. Unfortunately, we was too far gone at that stage. But into the second half, I think we come back at them and we really, really did well. We had a right go at them. We was a little bit unfortunate not to get a couple of goals. And, the only difference was we got caught on the break for the third goal. Otherwise, it would have seemed a little bit closer. We was very, very... there's been a few decisions, and I'm not making this as an excuse, but there's been a few decisions over the last 4 or 5 games that haven't gone our way, and they are key decisions, key moments in the game, which would or could have turned matches. And we've just been on the other end, the wrong end of those decisions. So, we got beat. We got beat at Liverpool. It's very difficult. But you've got to remember, Liverpool are a very, very good football team. They're a world-class football team. Have been for 30 years now. It is no disgrace getting beat up there. Liverpool are supposed to win home games. We've had a good record up there over the past 8 or 10 years. We've won plenty of games up there. This year, unfortunately, wasn't our year.
That's fair enough, G. But I mean, one of the points I'd make to you would be Francis Coquelin has been atrocious recently, and how he's getting a starting spot ahead of Oxlade-Chamberlain, who's been doing pretty well. I find very strange. Very strange. Ox has been a bit of a revelation in the middle of the park, and Iwobi has. He's hardly contributed at all recently. I do find that strange. Andrew, you wanted to come in on that?
Yeah, there's only a few. Yeah, I actually take on board what Geoff says. 100%. There has been a few major decisions which have gone against Arsenal in the last few games, and it's not just the last few games. I think all season we've seen some ludicrous penalty decisions against us or red cards, and that's kind of what I said earlier. We really need to be more in the face of the referee than what we are, not in just ones and twos. I'm on about packs of 6 and 7. But I mean, a couple of other points, Joe. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be critical of Wenger here because it's not. I mean, I'm not trying to just only be critical because there is a lot of Wenger players as well. But I do take on board what you say about how Wenger's looked at the players in the week and how they're playing. But I do find it hard to believe that in the week, for example, Giroud is running 100 metres in 11 seconds because we know Walcott can do that, and we know that when he does that, that puts Liverpool under pressure. And as you say, yeah, Liverpool do apply the pressing game, struggled against the press. But I think we found in recent seasons, actually, when teams did press, the best outlet we had to kind of combat that was by putting Rosicky in midfield, because Rosicky, he was such a direct midfielder that when he picked up the ball in the middle, he would just start sprinting 10, 15 metres up to the other player's end, and it would just completely break down the opposition press. And the only player in the current squad I think we have capable of doing that in centre midfield is Oxlade-Chamberlain, which is why it still baffles me Chamber didn't start in centre midfield that game. So I think he is our best outlet for when teams do that against us. He really does counter and he puts the kind of us on the front foot. So and I'd love to see Oxlade-Chamberlain start as our number 8 alongside Xhaka for the rest of the season. And whether Ramsey plays 10, whether Ozil plays 10, doesn't really bother me. I want to see Chamber in that role. And you are right. There is no disgrace in losing to Liverpool, and we should be we should be clear. We're Arsenal. We're a big, solid team, and we will play other big teams, and we're not going to win every big game. The only disgrace, slightly for me, was that first half tactic of literally hoofing the ball from Mustafi to Giroud, because that for me was so anti-Arsenal that's kind of what hurt. And you're right, the second half was a much marked improvement, and we should make that clear. But kind of that kind of style of football, I really thought that was just it wasn't stuff that we want to see in a big game. We want to go up there and really give it a go, and I don't think we made a good account of ourselves in that first half.
Fair enough. Sophie, you've listened to the boys.
Yeah, it's interesting because you know, this is a team that's lost to Burnley, Swansea, Wolves in the FA Cup.
Carry on. I'm enjoying this.
Hull City. They drew 0-0 against Plymouth and had to go to a replay and only beat Plymouth 1-0 in the FA Cup. Eventually, they got knocked out. They've lost to Bournemouth and Arsenal, who have great players. I think better players than Liverpool. Again, lose to Liverpool. We should have beaten them when we played them early on in the season, and we should have beaten them in this game. This team came to us with low confidence, as were we. They have been so questionable at the back. Their goalkeepers have been woeful all season. And you've got James Milner playing left back and Emre Can in midfield replacing Henderson, Can is having the worst season he's ever had since he's joined Liverpool. And our choice is to start Giroud up front. You know, Klopp's heavy metal football has failed him in the last few weeks. They've been so poor in 2017. They've actually been more rubbish than we have. And you've got Walcott on the bench, you've got Lucas Perez on the bench, and you've got Sanchez on the bench. And those three players came on in the second half. And I think if those three players had started in the first half and we would have taken it to Liverpool, instead of playing Giroud up front because he was a different option to play a high ball, what a load of bollocks is that, to be honest with you. We could have really used our pace, our passing game. I think we set up Xhaka and Coquelin to fail in midfield because of the way we were set up with Giroud. He had less touches than Liverpool's goalkeeper, I think, in the entire game. And so for me, I get it. I get it. It's a tough time. It's not easy, but we've almost become a club that don't hold people accountable or responsible. And I feel like we enable our players who are so able to play so well. And in this particular game, for me, I think we got our tactics wrong. We got our team selection wrong. We could have beaten a team that was lacking in confidence, and we missed an opportunity completely. And that loss was probably, in my opinion, one of our toughest losses. And I can't remember who mentioned it at the beginning of the question, but 12 days to prepare for that game. And I understand player discipline. No player is bigger than the club. But that's interesting too, because there are times when there is a player who is shining at a club that seems bigger than the club. But players like Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, you know, they become bigger than the club, but in a positive way, because they just become the face of it, right? And Alexis Sanchez has been our best player this season. And I feel like he's been made to be a bit of a scapegoat. And I understand that something may have gone on that led Arsene Wenger to bench him. But handle it the way Antonio Conte did with Diego Costa earlier on this season. Don't put him on the subs bench. Just leave him at home. Why would you even do that? And you choose to drop Sanchez in a game against Liverpool where we really needed to win, to stay in that top four. Okay, we're not going to win the league, but at least set the team up to succeed and try and push for that top four position. And I think leaving Sanchez on the bench was the biggest mistake Arsene Wenger has made in a very, very long time. And that was really telling. And then you bring him on in the second half and expect him to be the hero when we've been so poor. And then, you know, he gets criticized. So I think Wenger has to really be accountable and responsible for the Liverpool game. And of course, the players who put in a bit more of an effort, but that was because of Sanchez's energy more so. But I think if you start players with pace and you leave Giroud on the bench, the super sub thing with Giroud was working so well all season. He was like a freaking hero. And I just think that sometimes Wenger needs to look in the mirror a little bit and question his team choices and his tactics. And in the Liverpool game, he got it really wrong.
Okay, Soph. Loving that. I totally agree with you regarding Sanchez. You know, nobody's bigger than the club. Bench him. Just, you know, not on the bench, leave him at home. We're playing Gabriel. I mean, you know...
Useless. He wouldn't even get into Newcastle United's team right now.
He couldn't hit the cow's arse with the banjo.
I would rather play Rob Holding, right? And I know some people may slate me for that, but really, when has Gabriel ever had a good game?
Coughlin, sorry, Coughlin, I do apologise. Coughlin.
I think that's a fair point on Gabriel as well. Therefore,
yeah, it is.
Into myself, it is correct. And the thing with Gabriel as well, as you say, he's never really had a good game. The only one good thing he's ever done for me was when he elbowed a Nutovic in the face after a Nutovic smashed Debussy into the boards, and that's literally it. He showed, he's got a bit of technique about him, but I honestly don't see what this stats DNA thing found. Honestly, I just can't see it.
I was happy he was left on the subs bench in the Liverpool game, to be honest with you. He's a liability, and he's just not a good player. He's not an Arsenal player. He's not even a Premier League player. He's so poor.
And also, so you don't have a pop at him on a personal level, but realistically, from what I gather, he's not learned English in the 2 years he's been here. And don't get me wrong, I can't speak Portuguese, but I don't pay for a Brazilian football club. And there is that element of communication there where apparently he just can't speak with some of the guys around him, which, it's fundamental to being a team. You need to have that level of communication. Okay, you might need basic, simple words, but even when it comes to stuff like team bonding and ingratiating and relaxing into London, you feel like there needs to be that development step there, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch too.
Well, they get paid a lot of money, so it's the least you expect. Coughlin and Xhaka, Sophie, you've got a guy who just can't kick a ball in Francis Coughlin at the moment. Do you think that's holding Xhaka back? Come on.
Yeah, every midfield partnership has there's a tandem, there's a vibe, there's an understanding. We've seen that previously in our own history as a club, and we see that all the time. You look at Chelsea with Conte, and you look at it in envy, because that's a player that we could have potentially signed last season. And Xhaka is not a bad player. When Xhaka was playing in Bundesliga, people likened him to Alonso. He was able to make these sweeping passes with his left foot. I know he can be stupid sometimes, but he's not a stupid player. He just makes stupid decisions. There are times where he makes passes, and I think that almost, we let him down because of that support. And Coquelin has been a hero at times, hasn't he? He's got stuck in, and he's been really effective for us over the last, couple of seasons. But he always feels like a Band-Aid. He always feels like a player who is just getting us by. He's a short-term solution to a long-term plan we don't have. And we paid a lot of money for Granit Xhaka, and we haven't seen the best of him. And I do think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think partnership-wise, I just don't think that we've matched him up with the type of player that, that he should be playing alongside. Yes, as I said, he's made some bad decisions. But really, if you watch him play, and you've watched him play over the last few years, he's been a sweet player. We didn't pay 35 million for him for nothing. I mean, Wenger's very frugal when it comes to the transfer market. And I, at the time, thought Granit Xhaka was a game changer for us when we signed him last season, because I had seen him play, and we just haven't seen the best of him. And one of the things I think that we do a lot is that we set our team up to fail. And I just don't understand why that is. Why do we do that?
I have no idea. I mean, you mentioned Sanchez. We have other players in the squad with pace. We have Walcott, we have Perez. And as soon as Sanchez came on, Klein's held back. He can't go forward. We'd have had the same with Milner. We could have really put pressure on with a bit of pace, and it did shock me a bit. Geoff, the setup of that team, it's wrong. Okay, Liverpool have been piss poor this season in 2017 so far. It was a really disappointing result. We got Bayern a few days later. What on earth? How do we change that mindset from going to such a poor performance and then trying to raise the game, because I really find it difficult, okay, having watched the season so far. How can you justify starting Francis Coughlin? I don't understand it. Alex Iwobi's been a passenger in most of the big games, and I know he's playing 10 because of Ozil's supposed illness, but surely there's got to be an accountability there, as to say, well, look, come on, you know, in the big games, these guys are not working. Why are we taking them away to Anfield? Why?
Well, you know, personally, I know goal scorers. They're the ones that score the goals, and they win you the game. But you know, really, down to the nitty gritty of it, I think the midfield is the most vital area of the pitch. And to be perfectly frank with you, I think the two players that we've had playing in the centre midfield of late, they've been too ordinary. They've just been so ordinary. I think Coquelin, unfortunately, he's just hit a brick wall. He was sensational when he first came into the team a couple of years ago. And at the time, we was crying out for that type of holding, tough tackling, combative midfield player. He came in and he was like a breath of fresh air. It was just what we needed at the time. Unfortunately, he hasn't improved. We need a little bit more. For an Arsenal centre midfield player, we need someone that can, you know, we really do, and we should have someone that can do the lot. Now, you know, I've said it before, but I think we're really, really missing Santi Cazorla, because, you know, although he doesn't really get his foot in,
Geoff,
yes, sir.
I do apologise, okay. I said in this podcast, when he got injured the first time, okay, that's him for the rest of the season. It's an Achilles, it's a nightmare. He's 31 years of age. He has a particular skill set, okay. As fabulous a footballer as he is, you know, he's done at the Arsenal. He may have 10 games next season, but if he hits 20, I'll be amazed. It ain't happening anymore. You know, why are we always looking backwards at what we've had instead of looking forwards and trying to build on what we've actually got?
No, I'm telling you the situation as I see it. Why we've got, unfortunately, we've landed up with two quite ordinary midfield players in the centre of midfield. You know, I believe that Xhaka, he will be a top player for Arsenal, but he's still bedding in. You know, it's a fierce league, the Premier League. I think it's a little bit fiercer than in Germany, and I think he struggled really to catch up with the pace of it. You know, he doesn't really have that time on the ball. You can see it, and you know, after a little while, your confidence wavers a little bit, and I think he's lost a little bit of confidence because he's not really been performing how he knows he should be performing. And with those two in the middle of the park, I think they've both struggled, and there's been times where, you know, you do need the quality of footballer, someone like Santi, and we've missed Ozil. You take two of them you take those two players out of any football team, and you are going to misfire somewhere along the line. Unfortunately, we're just not good enough in the middle of the park, and it's such an important place. You need top players in there.
That's fair enough, okay. But the one thing where, you know, I'm before anybody says it, I love Arsene Wenger, but Arsene Wenger's chopped and changed that midfield all season. And so therefore, you know, when it comes to forming a partnerships, and I know we've had injuries to Santi, Ramsey, etc. Okay, but you know, you've had El Nene at the Africa Cup of Nations. But when he has, you know, there was a time, I think we played 10, 11 games where we changed the midfield every single game. You know, that's not helping anybody settle in, is it?
When the manager doesn't know who the best midfield partnership is, how do you expect the players to react?
How do you expect to get good results? He doesn't even know. That's the problem.
So on that one, I'd say, and it's quite a question to yourself, Sophie, and to Jason, to Geoff, and even Danny if he's finished wanking. I mean, in terms of the actual midfield two, who would you see as our best midfield two? And the reason I ask, and I want to ask, what do you think? Because I'm really, really now for giving Oxlade-Chamberlain an extended period of games as our number 8, replacing Santi whilst he's injured in that position next to Xhaka. I think those two next to each other could really be a balanced two. But I'll be kind of, you know, I want to see, sanity check with a couple of guys like you. But I mean, what do you think?
I agree with you. I don't think Coquelin is the answer. I think that I believe in Xhaka. I just think that he's been set up to fail a little bit. I don't believe in El Neni. I don't think he's the answer. I do agree with Geoff. I know that sometimes I told you about my rear view mirror saying before we came on air and stuff, but Santi Cazorla, we haven't been able to replace Santi Cazorla. And when you look at teams in the top four, whether it's in the Premier League, whether it's Real Madrid, Barcelona a little bit thinner, but, Bayern Munich, Juventus, they've got replacements to come in and do a similar job. And I think one of the arguments that we've always had at Arsenal is how like-minded are our replacement players when a world-class player like Santi Cazorla gets injured. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain at least shows some determination and some grit and some fight. I don't think his end ball is always the best. I think he holds on to the ball a little bit too long sometimes. And I think that if he could just pass it a few seconds before he makes the decision to pass it, I think he'd be much successful. And I think that's the biggest argument with the Ox. But I would love to see him get a run out. And I really don't think he's been given the opportunity. Now they're talking about him wanting to leave because he's also thinking about his England career. He's thinking about the fact that, really, he's been a fringe player at Arsenal over the last few seasons, hasn't been given the same chances as Walcott. And, Theo's been great this season, probably one of the best seasons he's had at Arsenal for a long time. So I agree with you. I also agree with, I can't remember if Geoff said it earlier, but we just don't have the quality. We don't have the quality to match other teams in Europe right now in that midfield area. That's the problem.
In terms of the quality, so in terms of the qualities that Cazorla specifically brings, would you kind of say it was more someone who's got that creative vision and deep mind, who can apply, creative football from that little bit deeper back and get us out of those positions when we're, further behind the pitch and say the number 10?
Exactly. And what Zola does is he brings players to him, which opens up spaces in other areas of the pitch for the team. And sometimes you don't get that with the midfield position. Sometimes, the opposing team will back off. But Santi Cazorla is so talented because people know when he's got the ball and he's going to get the ball, he's going to do something pretty special with it. His distribution is amazing. His pinpoint accuracy. And so he opens up other spaces, not only with his passing, but also when he's in possession. And I think that's one of the biggest problems for us too, is that when we have our current midfield in possession, no one really cares. No one's going at them as much because they're more afraid of what Sanchez is going to do, or Walcott, or Ozil, or whoever is playing a little bit further up the field. And I think that's that's been a really big challenge for us without Santi Cazorla.
So then I guess it's a bit of a shame that 3 seasons ago when Santi started to become a bit more injury prone, that there wasn't a midfielder on the market who was going for a snippet of a price at 25 million, was world class and could play deep level, creative player who'd already shown his love for Arsenal in Cesc Fabregas. I want him back.
Look, I'm sorry, I'm cutting that crap out right now.
I'm sorry, but he would have been perfect.
The guy went on strike. The guy went on strike.
Retrospectively, he would be perfect for that team now because Cazorla's been injured for 2 years, and that is his key position. He went to Chelsea. We let him go to Chelsea for 25 million, and he won the league in his first season. And he wouldn't, have had that partnership with Costa. I think he would have been great.
He may well be, okay? We'll never know. But one of the things I'll bring up there is Santi Cazorla only really started playing that central midfield position at the Man City game.
Precisely. So for about 7 months before he got into that position and before we decided to not bring back Fabregas, we had Arteta and Flamini in midfield. So
what you got to remember is at the time, though, don't forget Aaron Ramsey, previous season, had just come off that fantastic season he did have. And now it was a choice of buying. On the record, I think it was a mistake not to bringing Cesc back. I think he's been one of the finest midfield players we've ever had, right? And I mean that. But at the time, Rambo was just coming through and he had a fantastic season. And I think Wenger, he pinned his hopes on bringing Ramsey and replicating the previous season and carry on. So it's difficult. Like, hindsight's a beautiful thing. We could all say these things. You know what I mean? But I think that's the problem then.
As I say, I am talking retrospectively. I do agree it was a tough one at the time, but I just, you just got to look back and think, bloody hell, he would have been amazing back at the club, wouldn't he?
I'm sure secretly he does it as well, Wenger.
You guys have broken up with a girl, right, and gotten back together with her, even though, right? Come on, tell me.
Soph, when it's done forever. Never go back.
I don't believe that, and life just doesn't work that way. Sports doesn't work that way. I think Wenger, and I love Wenger, and not only did he change Arsenal, he changed English football. Period. He's a trailblazer. But with the Cesc thing, I think there was a bit of stubbornness there. And I get it. We were all hurt. It was brutal. It was the worst breakup ever. But then so was Van Persie. So was Thierry Henry, maybe a little less so. Samir Nasri, I think, it was a case of don't let the door hit you on the way out. Maybe the same with Adebayor. I mean, let's just keep going down the list, shall we?
Mm-hmm. I can go all the way back to Frank Stapleton.
Well,
yeah, if we want to go that far back.
It's one of those things. To go back to the question, Fife, okay? I mean, I think, we're still talking about which midfield two would you play. I'd go for the midfield three that we had on against Bayern, starting against Bayern this week. Because for 55 minutes, Vidal, Thiago and Alonso hardly got a kick of the ball. They were outplayed by Xhaka, Ox and Ramsey. We looked really fluid. I think it's not so much the midfielders, it's the setup that we have to look at. That's what it is for me. Dan, what do you think? Have you got an opinion on it, or?
Well, I firstly have to say Ozil was one of my favourite players when he was at Real Madrid. He was amazing for Germany. He's amazing for us. He has been amazing. He can score more goals than anyone in the team other than probably Sanchez. If you let him do what he wants, he'll do the most passes. He'll do the most running. He's got the most skill. I'd drop him from the team. I don't want to see him play for Arsenal again, and I'm one of his biggest fans. What I want to see is Ramsey and Xhaka as the midfield two. I want to see the Ox as part of that midfield two in an attacking role, not as far forward as Ozil, because we know Ozil can't play in a midfield three, can he? He has to play behind the main man. I know sometimes he's played a little in odd different positions for Germany. I want to see those three because I think they've got the Ox is living life, but I'll put that the right way around. He's loving it in that position because his old man, England international, said that his future position is going to be through the middle, and we're finally seeing that, and he's doing it. And some of those runs he has made, because he can, when you're a central defender and the Ox can play left wing, right wing, central midfield, attacking midfield. When he's running at you, like I think Andrew said that he'd like to see him play in that position, much like Cazorla. When he's in that position and he's running at you, you don't know whether he's going to go left or he's going to go right. Like, Aaron Robben, every time he's going to go left because he's left-footed, isn't he? Yeah, because he kept cutting in on the left. I'm sure that's what it was.
That's right.
Yeah, and so how hard is it when you're defending Aaron Robben? Just make sure he goes to your left the whole time. And if he goes to your left the whole time on his right foot, he's not going to do anything. I mean, in the Bayern game, how many times in both legs, how many times was he allowed to come in on his left foot and score a goal and set stuff up? But with the Ox running at you like that, he's got endless pace, he's got endless passion. He's one of my favourite players. Probably I said a few weeks ago, he's my favourite player at the club. I just love watching the Ox play. Ramsey, when he's let to play in central midfield and he's got a little bit of a free license to roam. Although Ox is the one who has the standard, the usual number 8, the Gaza kind of go off and do what you want, but he will track back. And so seeing those three in the central midfield is brilliant. If we're going to get any of our money back from Ozil, we need to sell him now. And it's almost stupid to say he's too good for the club. He's too good. The position he plays in is no longer a position that we can afford to have at the club, especially if you're going to play Giroud up front, because Giroud is He's marked out the game the whole time. Sanchez is all over the place, and I like to have a fluid attacking line. So 3 in the middle, then I'd have Walcott out wide on the right, who's having one of his best seasons in living memory, and I'd have Perez out on the left. I don't want to see Iwobi anywhere near the team for the rest of the season, maybe, because that kid is so special and he is going to be burnt out, which Wenger does to the young players all the time. So many players he's played like our Dom keeps saying, is he going to bring Ramsey back and play him until his legs fall off and then go, oh, he's dropped him again? And they're the ones I want to see. And I want to see Sanchez playing up front because, like we saw at the beginning of the season, the conveyor belt formation of where you've got Walcott on the right who can drift up front, you've got Sanchez who can go either side, and then you've got Lucas Perez on the left-hand side, who when he was at Deportivo was playing up front. When he's played for other teams, he's played any one of those front 3 positions. All of those players can all conveyor belt around, and that's what we need to see. And when we did that beginning of the season, we were unstoppable because you don't know what you're going to do. You can't man-mark them because you'll end up man-marking Sanchez and then following him all the way to the left wing. Meanwhile, Lucas has now come into the forward position and you're going, well, am I meant to be marking him? You can't zonal mark them because there'll be nobody in that zone. And then you're standing there going, well, who am I meant to be marking? There's nobody here. And it just confuses the defenders. I think as a position from a defender, what would you hate to see? You'd hate to see those 3 mobile attackers with those 3 in midfield and thinking, what the hell am I going to do? Who am I meant to be marking? And that's what it works. So unfortunately, I don't think Ozil's got a future at the club because we can't accommodate him.
Dan, breathe.
Well, I've had 45 minutes of sitting here twiddling my thumbs because these 3 have been so brilliant.
But then, to be fair,
the thing is with Ozil, like you know, he is a world-class footballer. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The guy's won everything, right? And it's so difficult that we almost should really try and fit the players around him and Sanchez. But for some reason or another, we can't seem to be doing that at the moment. I can't. I've said it on a couple of podcasts ago. I said that I do think that maybe the Premier League is maybe 10 or 15% too tenacious for him. He hasn't really got that extra few seconds on the ball. I know he creates all the space himself and everything else, but sometimes, he's found it very, very difficult, isn't he? And you've got to remember he's been ill, and that's why he's missed out on a few games.
What I would say on that is, from a pure ability perspective, he's an absolute champagne player, Geoff. But and I agree, kind of what you're saying. The English game is very different to the German game. But and kind of, I guess what some of the guys were saying earlier. Do you reckon tactically as well, though, because we've adapted our game to be very much a 4-2-3-1 with him as the middle player, in the 3, so he's the number 10. Do you think that we're not, or historic? If you look at, the 20, I think it was the 2010, maybe 9 to 11 seasons when we had Van Persie as the false 9 up front, and then you had Theo and Nasri either side of him. You had Wilshere just above Fabregas and Song, and it was very much a 4-3-3 formation, and it was very compact midfield. And then at the top, Van Persie was the false 9, so he would drop back slightly into more of a 10 role at times, which would allow the pace of Nasri and Walcott to get in behind, and it was very fluid but also compact. And do you think Ozil sometimes get lost within the tactics that actually we're not as compact as what we used to be, or do you think it is more just the game is kind of ahead of him?
I just think that defensively he just doesn't offer you anything at all, and if he's it's very difficult. If you're having trouble in the game, you can't get the ball down against the top teams, or you're not having as much as the ball as you'd like against the top teams. He seems to drift off out of the game, and it's not necessarily his fault. Mesut Ozil can only wave his magic wand and do the business if you get him the ball in the right positions, and if you've got players that are running around him and players that he can pass to. If you don't get him the ball, it doesn't matter what he needs. He's a magician with the ball. If he hasn't got the ball, then there's nothing you can do about it. And when we're defending, he's non-existent for us. So we're playing like we're 9 outfield players. It's very difficult.
That, the only thing I would say as well, I don't know what Wenger says to Ozil and how he tells the team to defend. I don't know who he says. But I sit on the 9th row at the stadium, and I sit right by the players. And there's been several times in recent weeks where I've seen there's been the opposition team have been quite well deep within our half, quite camped within our half, playing the ball 30 yards out of goal, 40 yards. And Ozil is the closest player to the man on the ball. And instead of going to make a tackle, he'll point and scream at Coquelin or someone to run, 10 metres to get there to make a tackle when he's only 2 away from himself. So, yes, it frustrates the hell out of me that he doesn't make those tackles and he doesn't get involved enough defensively. But I'm not 100% sure that he's been told categorically for tactical reasons not to make those tackles, because he's told, as soon as we win the ball back, we want you to be free, so you're the outlet to, find the right players. Honestly, I don't know. And
but
I wouldn't
the
be
problem
surprised.
is, Fife, we never win that ball back. I think it's once this season against West Ham where Coquelin made the tackle high up the park, where we've actually transformed that into a goal. We haven't, if that's the tactic, fine, but we haven't executed it all season.
I think, as Geoff says, the 2 players behind Ozil have been far too ordinary most of the season, and that's the problem.
But if you're being outmanned 3-2 in midfield against quality players, and the Premier League is full of quality players, you cannot afford to play 2 against 3 all the time. It doesn't work.
I agree. I think 4-3-3 could be a way to go for some of the games coming up with Ramsey, Oxlade-Chamberlain and Xhaka in the middle. I think we look very good there.
I thought we got the best out of Oxlade-Chamberlain on Wednesday night. Was it Wednesday? I can't remember. But anyways, I thought that midfield worked really well. And let's move on to Bayern. Sophie, I love listening to you rant.
It's good stuff, isn't it?
Oh, I tell you what, I'm enjoying this. It's normally me ranting. We went into the Champions League game with Bayern. We've come off the back of a disappointing Liverpool game. And I don't know how you felt about it, but I thought the first 55 minutes, 1-11, we looked good. We were a bit wasteful in front of goal. I'm not sure about the Giroud starting up top in that game. But I thought, our midfield were great. I thought Walcott was magnificent. I thought Ox was superb. I thought Sanchez was at it. How do you see it? Talk me through it.
That game was so sad because the first half was incredible. We really showed some guts and we showed some fight. And I agree with you. Walcott, do you know how hard it is to score a goal like that against Manuel Neuer, the Great Wall of Neuer? It's almost impossible to score a goal against that guy in that position. And Theo Walcott, that goal was one of the finest I've seen him score for Arsenal. And in some ways, he kind of put the team on his shoulders in that game. And we started playing fearless. And I think that sometimes our own fears are what defeat us in games. We saw it with PSG against Barcelona. The fear in their eyes after that first goal went in, it was over. I don't know anybody who sat there who didn't think Barcelona weren't going to win that game. Even when PSG scored the away goal, they had a fear in their eyes when they defended as soon as they conceded a goal. And our problem is when we concede a goal, we collapse. Mentally, we just completely lose our minds. And if I can't believe we don't work on that a lot more, and maybe you guys can help me. Maybe there is a lot more mental strengthening going on at the club, and maybe that's something that they are working on that I don't know about. But when you start the game the way we did, the way we went at them, and then, I think I agree with you. I would have actually thrown the kitchen sink at them, and I would have not started with Giroud. I would have had him on the bench. I would have actually played Lucas Perez as well. The pace was scaring Bayern Munich. In the first half an hour at least, our back four was really cohesive. Positionally, we were great. They really didn't present too many threats. And when they did, we combated that really, really well. Sometimes I think Ospina gets a really difficult time. I actually think Ospina in the last season's been a better keeper than Petr Cech. I think what prevents him from starting a lot is his height. I watched him play in Copa America, and he's been sensational for at international level. And I think that a lot of the times, because our back four does collapse and we don't have that protection from midfield, the goalkeeper is put in very, very compromising positions. Second half, we concede. There's the penalty situation. We lose Koscielny again, who's undoubtedly one of our best players, and we collapse mentally. We just go. We gave up. We actually laid down our swords on the pitch and we gave up. And yes, it was a horrible situation. The referee ballsed it up. There's no doubt about that. But you've got to keep fighting and you've got to keep going. And I think that tactics went out the window then. The players weren't cohesive. They weren't in the positions they needed to be. We lost our shape. But that all came from the fact that mentally we collapsed when that penalty situation happened and Koscielny went off.
Sorry to interrupt there. Sorry to interrupt you, Jess. I was going to say you're completely right there about that. The players not being in the place they need to be and us losing shape. And I was going to say, because you mentioned him earlier, what did you think about the fact that when Koscielny got sent off, we didn't actually bring Gabriel on. We just put Xhaka into centre-back.
That was really bizarre because at that point you also you need insurance. And I found that really, I think at that point, and I hope Geoff doesn't get mad at me, but I think Wenger really put the team in a very bad position. I think that, that was because mentally he could see they were down. We could all see they were down. We could see we could see it coming. I didn't see 5-1 coming again for sure, but I think that decision set the team up to fail for the rest of the game. And but at the same time, he had to go and try and win the game, didn't he? So I don't know what you guys think about that, because it's kind of 6-1, half a dozen of the other, because it's a really, really difficult situation at that point when you've got to score, you're probably not going to win. You want to have a go at it, but at some point, you've got to save face as well, no?
It quite literally was 6-1, but not half a dozen to the other, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We only had to
I want to come to you in this fight, actually, before I come to Geoff. So, at the point, okay, we've had, for me, a stone-cold penalty turned down by the referee when Alonso and Walcott. We've had what in slow motion is Lewandowski buying the penalty, a ridiculous red card. But in that game, at that point, the player with the least amount of impact on the game, and it's not his fault. I like Oli Giroud. I think he's a great player. I think, he works hard up top. But, bear me a second. Martinez and Hummels can handle him all day long. Okay? What they're scared of is pace, and Oli hasn't got that. Why don't we bring off Oli Giroud, put Gabriel on, and say to Theo and Sanchez, run at them. We're going to keep winning the ball in midfield like Ramsey, Xhaka and Ox have been doing all game. Thiago. What's the Spanish boy? His name again?
Alcantara.
No. Thiago, Alonso, and Vidal haven't had a kick.
Martinez.
Yeah, they haven't had a kick. Okay, Martinez and Hummels are there to be run at. Why have we left all his Giroud? He's flogging a dead horse, the poor bugger. Talk me through it. What I would come in and say is I think you're being a bit too nice on him there. I do think you say it's through no fault of his own, and you say that he works hard, but actually, really, Giroud didn't work hard the other night against Bayern. I was watching him. People around me were getting so irate. He wasn't winning, and obviously there is an element where we do stick the ball up to him and hope that he wins headers. But he wasn't winning any of them. There was a point where I think he hadn't won, one of the 6 headers that have gone up to him. And then there went one up to Sanchez. And Sanchez actually tussled with the centre-back and managed to win it and bring it down. You think, Giroud, this is what you need to be doing. There was times when Hummels and Martinez were just playing it between each other, and Giroud wasn't making any effort to close them down. He wasn't really getting it. He was the one player. It came off at half-time, and he was the only player you thought, come on. The rest of the team are going for it. They're playing so well, and he's just not involved. And off the back of that, that absolutely dismal performance he's put in at Liverpool, and the fact that, he's done so well coming off the bench this year. I think Sophie mentioned he's been a real super sub for us. And when he's had a point to prove, and it's almost like, well, he's now started a couple of big games, and there's just no effort for him. And I know maybe he's a little bit miffed. I think he wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he wasn't actually meant to start, and Welbeck kind of realised he was ill in the warm-up or something, and we've completely changed the tactics because of it. But, I don't get why
why we completely changed the tactics of the team. We've gone from having Welbeck and Walcott either side of Sanchez, and then because Welbeck's ill, rather than looking at something relatively similar and having Lucas on the left and keeping Alexa up top, we've decided to go with Giroud, and that completely changes the entire formation of the team. And don't get me wrong, because you're right, we came out and we absolutely battered them for 55 minutes. And yes, you know, you don't want to blame the ref too much when it's a 10-2 loss, because you don't want to lose too much dignity. And honestly, you know, I think it is uncharismatic to say, you know, if the ref got the right calls, we would have gone through. We're not Barcelona versus PSG, but yeah, he did ruin the game for me. I mean, they don't show contentious things in the ground, but, you know, it looked like Theo should and could have had a penalty. Vidal could have gone off.
Five. I'll name you a number of quick things here. There was the issue, first of all, where Ramsey loses the ball edge of the box. Vidal takes it. Ramsey comes back, tackles him. Okay. Vidal falls to the ground, basically ankle taps on Ramsey. Vidal gets the free kick. Mm-hmm. It was ridiculous, okay? There's the Theo Walcott penalty, which, you know, they're arguing the BT Sports studio. Oh, no, it's not a penalty. You can see in slow motion, he gets the thing. If you're looking at real time, that's a stone-cold penalty all day long. He's taken the man out. Is it stupid of Koscielny to run across Lewandowski in the box afterwards when you're on the end of some poor decisions? Or, you know, how do you think of it? Because I'm sorry, you know, we weren't going to go through in the tie, fair enough, right? But the referee has had a major impact on that result.
Of course he has, and don't get me wrong, I was as livid as anyone in the ground with it. I mean, the worst one for me, actually, because it was right in front of me, is when the Oxlade-Chamberlain's picked up the ball in his own half. He's run all the way down into their half, and then outside of the penalty area, Rafinha's jumped and dived over him, quite frankly, and he's dived, and he's got Chamberlain booked. And there was a guy about 3 seats away from me who threw a lighter, and it was about inches from the ref. And people were livid, and quite rightly, the referee did ruin what was a very, very good game of football, unfortunately. But I mean, coming to your question, why didn't he bring off Giroud and put on Gabriel? Yes, and we've kind of already slated and coated off Giroud. Gabriel earlier, and Kay's not good, but he's a centre back. When that goal went in and it was 6-1, I think that was the flashpoint. I don't think anyone realistically in the ground thought, okay, fuck, we can now go and score whatever we need to score, 6 or 7 goals, whatever it was. We know that Bayern have the capability to run through us. We've seen they've scored 5 in Munich. Let's just go for damage limitation. Why are we putting Xhaka centre? He's not a centre back, you know. Look at that third, you know, look at the third goal where Xhaka's halfway up their half. He's playing at centre back and he loses the ball by passing it. I think it was to Rafinha or someone they brought on, and he slides him and he tries to take him out stupidly because he knows he gets sent off for those kind of tackles. And they've run down the pitch and they're 3-1, and it's basics. But I'm not blaming Xhaka too much because that's not where he should be in the. You know what I mean? That shouldn't be his responsibility. And you do think, you know, we're not going to win this time, and we do then go and make 3 subs all in one go, and we mix it up a bit. But we still fundamentally have Xhaka and Mustafi as our centre backs, and we've only 10 men, and knowing how good Bayern are, it did seem a strange decision, but. You know, and I think, as Sophie said, as soon as that first goal goes in against us, and it wasn't just the other night, it is characteristic of us that we drop our heads and we do lose it. And what it reminded me of was, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but, you know, like schoolboy football, sometimes you see the under-13 football when you've got, you know, the one team have got 5'8" lads who've all got beards and they're bullying the kids from the village because they can barely get a team together. And honestly, it really hurt watching it because it looked like we were those little kids, and you felt like, you know, you're the dad watching your kid and his son's losing 13-0, and they must be so embarrassed and humiliated on this pitch because 10 goals in 2 games, it's just, it really, really is tough to take. And, you know, you look at the crowd in the division, and when Sanchez came off, you've got some people refusing to stand up, and you've got other fans who wouldn't usually stand up going out of their way to clap him because that's how divided the fan base is. And it is representative of a bit of a shambles right now, and it's not a good, it really wasn't a good night.
The end result was damning. Geoff, I want you to come in on this then and hand over to Danny, okay? From such a positive first 55 minutes. And, you know, I mean, in the WhatsApp group, I was screaming on the record button, we are actually playing football. I haven't seen this for a long time. You know, probably since the Chelsea game where they were dog shit. We were playing some lovely, lovely stuff. Okay?
Yeah.
How do it make you feel going from, you know, such positive performance to utter capitulation?
It's true. It was incredible to watch. I mean, I think we started very well. I think the setup was right. I think that we purposely. I mean, it's a shame we lost Welbeck because he would have given us that. He would have given us that pace on the left hand side, and would have had Sanchez up top causing all kinds of trouble. And I think what the plan was, and it looked like it anyway from where I was sitting. I think the two centre halves they've got, Martinez and Hummels, they're not very pacey. They haven't got any pace, and they're not that good on the ball if you put them under pressure. It looked to me as if Arsenal was keeping the two wide players, Lahm and the other lad, occupied. So if the ball was going to be thrown out and they were going to try and play at the back, which they do, it was going to be Martinez or Hummels. And then as soon as Hummels and Martinez was getting on the ball, bang, we'd flock on them, hoping that they'd give the ball away. And, you know, it did happen a lot. That high press that once they got the ball, we left the space open. Okay, one of you two have it. And bang, as soon as the ball was travelling there was everyone just seemed to, you know, all push up another 10 metres and press the ball. If Sanchez was in there, they'd have been all over the place, trust me. And what you got to remember is, I think he put Giroud up top instead of bringing Perez and leave it as it was and just left him on the left-hand side, because I think they was concerned about... We got battered in that first leg down our left-hand side. I've mentioned this before. And I think that he put Sanchez out on the left-hand side because he was still concerned about that our left-hand side. And Lahm, he was then occupied. He was scared what Sanchez could do if there was a break, and he was caught high up the field. So Lahm was really held back for most of the time that he was up there. And I think that was the difference. I mean, the game itself, the first 55 minutes, as you've said, I think it was one of our best performances all season against a top team. You know, you got to remember, we've gone out with 5-1 down from the first leg. You know, it's gonna be miraculous, but it can be done. But we've had a go at it, right? And the first half, again, I spoke about it earlier on, key decisions in massive games we've just unfortunately been the wrong side of, because Vidal was very niggly in the first, and you know, they should have had 2 or 3 booked. There was a couple of tackles that went in there.
Vidal was lucky to the pitch.
It's fucking unbelievable, and I was getting so frustrated. You know,
the ankle tap on Ramsey's a yellow,
yeah,
and then he goes on in Sanchez, studs up later on. That's another yellow. Yeah. Okay, you know, I'm sorry, but what the fuck does the guy have to do to get a red card?
Well, that's right, and it was. You know, they systematically trying to break up our play, and then all of a sudden, you know, we should have definitely had a penalty. It was a Stonewall penalty. Look at the game then. We're 2-0 up. We're going in at half time 2-0, right? Bayern are now shitting themselves because they know that we can. You know, we are capable. We're a good side at home. All of a sudden, they come out the second half. The first 10 minutes was the same again. We was pressing. Giroud had a fantastic header. Should have nailed it. Should have definitely been 2-0. I was right behind it. It was incredible. You know, again, there we go. We could have been 2-0 then. Again, the game is slipping our way. They go up the other end and they get a penalty, and it was it was just a coming together. Very clever, Lewandowski. You can't blame him, right? It's a big game. He's gone there. He's more or less pushed himself off of Koscielny. Koscielny gets sent off for it. Now, the difference is, I've seen Arsenal in the past go down to 10 men, and we fucking steamroll teams on the strength of it because they rise up. We had players like Sol Campbell, Tony Adams, you know, Manu Petit, Patrick Vieira, and they would think, fuck this, I don't care. We can steamroll this team. We haven't got those characters anymore, and that is where the problem lies.
Bear with me, Geoff. Bear with me. I'm going to challenge you here, okay? Because we've seen that much vaunted Bayern midfield be outplayed. Okay, we're not seeing Olive Giroud have any massive effect on the game, as Feifia said. Okay, is this a case of the team not having character, or is this down to Arsene Wenger not bringing on a centre half, taking Giroud off and saying, right, the guys up front are going to have to work harder? The midfield, you keep on doing what you're doing, and we've still got a bit of solidity at the back because, you know, I take what Sophie and then Fife have said about us crumbling, but I don't think we allowed ourselves the chance to really go at them again.
Should I be honest with you?
Go on.
When that happened, it was a massive blow to us, you know, and we haven't got that characters that could get amongst them and, you know, get hold of the game by the scruff of the neck, you know, and you know, really go for it again. Don't let it worry you too much. They was shattered by that. We were shattered by the penalty because we was all over it at the time. We were then shattered by having maybe our best defender being sent off. We saw the impact it had in the previous encounter, the first leg, and I think at that stage, Wenger he made a wrong call bringing Ozil on. You know, I think he should have gone back to the old school days. You know, you're not going to score 4 goals against Bayern Munich, you know, in that short space of time, given what has just occurred. I think he should have gone back and just said, listen, okay, all right, let's not embarrass ourselves here. Let's not get a chasing. This is where you come back to characters, and the characters on the pitch, the people on the pitch, they should have just all, you know, you just lock it down now. Let's just not get embarrassed. We're not going to score 4. We're not going to win the tie, right? Let's just not get embarrassed. Let's get beat 2-1 or 3-1 maybe. Don't get a chasing. Unfortunately, the characters weren't on the pitch. Wenger made a ricket in how he called it, but you know, he called it. We try and play offensive football. We try and entertain. We try to go and win the tie. It was a mistake. Shit happens, mate.
No, well, fair enough. Dan, before I come back to Sophie on this, it was a hammer blow, Koscielny getting sent off. It was, as I say, you know, there's a ricket with them not replacing Koscielny with Gabriel. Did you see us shipping another 4 goals after that, or did you think we could put up a bit of a better fight? What were your thoughts at that time?
It was obvious that Xhaka was going to drop back into defence, which I wasn't overly happy about. Personally, what I'd have done, I'd have taken Bellerin off. I'd have swapped him for Gabriel, and I'd have told Monreal, Mustafi and Gabriel were playing 3 at the back, because when Monreal's played at the back as before, he'd be the left-sided one, and then Gabriel has played good at right back, and he would have been the right-sided defender, and I'd have said to Mustafi, well, you're the one staying back, and occasionally Monreal and Gabriel could have been the ones pushing forward, and then I'd have taken off Giroud, and I would have put on Perez. I wouldn't have waited. I mean, why the hell he brought Coquelin on, I've got no idea. Ozil, when he came on, he did nothing apart from being the last man back for one of the balls. And I was watching the game back. Your headphones are in the wrong place, Jace.
Sorry.
You're not. You keep doing it. You're a bad man. And then I was looking back at the goals, and then Xhaka was the last man there when they walked around him and put the ball in the net. Xhaka was the one who went sliding in on a tackle, gave the ball away, then went sliding in on a tackle, missed the tackle, got booked, the player ran down, and then we scored. It was Xhaka and Mustafi, the one where they put the ball between the two of them, ran on and scored. So Mustafi has had probably, it wasn't his fault because Koscielny had gone, but Mustafi had one of the worst games of his life. I think many of them did. Ospina, I rate Ospina. I like Ospina.
Bear with me a second. I'm going to stand up for Mustafi here. Yeah. All of a sudden, okay, you've got Koscielny gone off. You got Xhaka as your centre-half partner then. There's no cohesion there.
No, there was not much he could have done about it.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing here, sorry, because there's a lot of... Mustafi played a brilliant ball to Walcott in the first half, and I think that was for the build-up for the penalty. But what I would say is Mustafi does a lot of dumb shit, and he's young and he's learning his game. But there was twice in the first half when he went to head the ball from a goalkeeper. I think it was over from a Neuer releasing the ball, and he's actually ran 5 meters 2 or 3 meters realistically too far, and the ball's gone past him, and they've gone on to attack, and it's like that is little silly things which Jenkinson used to do, man.
5 feet, I agree with you. But against Liverpool, okay, you got Koscielny going up halfway up the pitch to go for a header, which he shouldn't be going for. Who got sent off on the night for running across a world-class striker who you know is going to go down at the drop of a hat, and people are having a pop at Mustafi? I'm sorry, okay, but there's double standards when we're looking at these two players, okay? You know, Koscielny does more dumb shit than anybody on the pitch. I'm not saying Mustafi doesn't, but let's be even-handed when we look at these guys. You know, we've got a squad full of players where it seems to be, okay, player A can get away with murder, player B is getting slaughtered for the slightest different little thing. You know, I just don't see how we're going to progress or how we can look at it objectively if we're having a pop at Mustafi for, okay, you know, a mistake he's made, that's fine, but our captain, who has no leadership skills whatsoever, gets sent off, costs a goal against Liverpool. Do you know what I mean?
Just the whole thing was just a clusterfuck of errors. Mustafi, I agree with you. Mustafi was a little bit hung out to dry. There wasn't much he could have done. But why the hell you would decide to let Xhaka, who is, if anything, I mean, Wenger's been playing Xhaka out of position all season. If you've got Xhaka and Coquelin playing in central midfield, Coquelin is the one who defends, gets the ball and gives it to someone. Xhaka is then the one who will pass the ball around and maybe make the odd run forward. It's the other way around. He's been getting Xhaka to do the defensive stuff. And now he's sticking Xhaka back as central defence. I wouldn't be surprised if the next game we see Xhaka starting in goal, because Wenger, that's a sign that a manager is losing the plot when he keeps getting wrong players and playing the wrong players in different positions. You saw Ranieri was doing that at Leicester. At one game he changed the left back and the right back when they were losing a game. These are the kind of stupid decisions that managers make when they're under pressure. Now we all know that Sanchez should not have come off. There's no way on earth he should have come off. If we were not going to bring on a centre back, then you could probably rearrange the centre backs for Monreal, Mustafi and Bellerin and said, look, you three play together, play as a solid unit, and none of you go forward. Stay where you are, because we still saw Mustafi running up the pitch and saw Bellerin running up the pitch, and poor Xhaka had no idea what he was doing. He had to be careful because he'd been booked for that reckless tackle where he gave the ball away, so he's on a yellow already. And Walcott, I think Walcott was quite clever because what he did when he managed to get Alaba booked, and then Martinez. I mean, I tweeted just before at the end of the first half, Martinez, their centre back, and their full back Albert left back, they're both on yellow cards. Now we need to make the most of that, pressurise those two, because neither of them can afford to make another mistake. And yet again, from Arsenal, it was a game of two halves, like Jimmy Greaves used to say, and it was. Yet again, we've played brilliantly one half and shit the other half, and that's what happened there. I mean, it's not our fault that the referee has been bribed. Like the whole of UEFA, FIFA and the FA are all corrupt, and they've got their favourite teams and they've got the teams they want to get through. I mean, how many times I've been watching football regularly since 1986, Mexico 86, and I've never in my life noticed a referee give a yellow card and then talk to one of the other officials, be it the fifth official or the linesman, and go, actually, no, that's a red card. Usually, in those circles, the referee makes his mind up, and that's it. You don't dare, as a linesman or a fourth or fifth official, tell the referee that he's got it wrong, which is done there. And I've never seen that before, and I doubt you'll ever see it again. Neuer was terrible in goal. I've never seen Neuer play that badly before, but it was so obvious that they wanted him to win. I mean, we should have had that penalty. It would have been 2-0, but instead it goes the other way. We get a player sent off that shouldn't have been sent off, like Geoff said. You could see in the slow motion replay that Lewandowski has used Koscielny as a pole to push himself away from him. In fact, if that had been in the centre of the pitch and you'd have looked at it from all angles, you'd have gone, well, actually, Koscielny's gone in to make a challenge, and the other bloke's tried to push him out of the way and fallen over. You could have even been given him a warning for diving or pushing in the area, or there's something that he could have been done for. And then that Lewandowski, he was offside anyway. When he ran into the middle of the box and Koscielny went after him, he was offside. So that should have been stopped right there. No, do your job. The bloke's offside, and then they wouldn't have got that. He wouldn't have been sent off, and then we could have gone on. That game, I think the best we could have done was maybe 1-3-0. There's no way we were going to turn around a 5-1 deficit. But we played brilliantly, and I was so full of hope in the first half, and then we go and Arsenal it up yet again like we always do. This time, not all of our own making.
Fair enough. Soph, so we've covered quite a lot there. What's your overall feeling coming out of the game? Do you feel cheated? Do you feel as if we're our own worst enemies? You know. Well,
yes. So here's the scoop, right? For me, mental impotence plus the inability to make adjustments during the game is our major weakness. Guys, this is the same team, barring 3 players, that humiliated Chelsea on the 24th of September, was it? 2016? On a beautiful Saturday at the Emirates. These are the same players. That lineup against Chelsea, the back four, the same. We had Cazorla in that game. Big difference. We've talked about that and the difference that he makes. And it's true. He does make a difference, a quality player like that. Coquelin goes off. I think that half hour into that game, Xhaka comes on, right? And Xhaka, I think, was brilliant in that game. I think that's the best he's played all season. And that's when everyone had this hope that he was going to be this certain player. Walcott, Ozil, Iwobi, Sanchez up front, which was working beautifully, absolutely beautifully. We were so effective. The pace, the way he chased and humiliated Cahill to get that goal, the fact that he has the ability to do that. This is the same team that beat Chelsea, who are now, 13 points ahead of us? Conte then makes adjustments after that match. He goes back to his trusted three at the back, the way he played at Juve, the way he played when he was the coach of Italy. And what Arsene Wenger, who is a football genius, it baffles me, and that he fails to make adjustments and bold decisions in a game, or to drop players who aren't playing well, or to mix it up just a little bit, is our weakness. These are good players. They're not bad players. Are you telling me that our squad isn't better than City, Liverpool, Spurs? I mean, we're making Spurs look like Barcelona right now. So our inability to make adjustments and to make decisions that, sometimes are tough to make. I look back at that Chelsea game as an example, and yes, it was early on in the season, but you have to question, why is it we're so good early on in the season? November is always a dip for us. And then February hits and the shit hits the fan. It's unbelievable to me. There's a culture, there's an issue with the culture of the team and the club right now. We had a winning mentality. This club is a born and bred winning club for years and years and years. Before Manchester City became a global brand now, they were nothing. Nothing. Money infused investment. And here we are today. Manchester City are one of the most well-known brands of the Premier League around the world. Same with Chelsea before Abramovich came. They were nobody. They were nothing. Laugh all you want at their revolving door of managers, but they've won trophies. I haven't agreed with how they've done it, but it's resulted in them winning trophies. And we have a culture at the club now that is run like a corporation. And if we're in the black, and we're making money, that's good. We finished top 4. There's a system, right? We've lost our winning culture. The FA Cup brought that back just a little bit. We did it, on the trot. It was amazing. And I thought from then on we would go and win the Premier League the next season, maybe even the season after that. And we've failed to do that. There's something going on, and yes, the board and all of these kind of infights or whatever it is that, there's two sides to every story, and then there's the truth. And I think a lot of the times the Arsenal fans are a little bit in the dark as to the truth. I looked Arsene Wenger in the eyes and I asked him this question when I interviewed him in LA. And I said, do you have a moral dilemma spending money? And his answer was clearly, yes, he does. Because we were talking about the Pogba thing at the time. And Pogba's a total bust. What a waste of money. I mean, Zlatan's been a revelation, but Pogba, I'm sorry, people can't look at that signing and say it's worked for Manchester United, because it just hasn't. Otherwise, they'd be flying, challenging for the title if he's supposed to be that good. So when you look at it, and I don't want to kind of go all over the place here, but when you look at this team and how we beat Chelsea convincingly, beautifully, playing our brand of football, and now we're here losing 10-2 to Bayern Munich. Granted, brilliant team, right? But arguably not as good as Pep Guardiola's Bayern Munich is what everybody's saying in terms of last season. There's something wrong with the mental conditioning of our players. Something's not right. And until that is fixed, you get great players coming in. Same thing happens at the same points every single season. Why is that?
I wish I knew. I tell you what, I'm bloody enjoying this.
Good stuff, isn't it?
I've enjoyed listening to all of you. Sophie, brilliant. I tell you what.
I told you she was good, didn't I?
I know. Okay. Well, I don't know. Never mind. In any case, right. I'm just going to leave it there for Bayern now, guys. We've been running quite a while.
Questions?
Yes. Danny.
Yes.
Sorry. I do apologise. Daniel.
Piss off. J-Dog. Okay, right. Questions time. One from Simon Collins. Don't know who he is. He sounds like a drunken reprobate. Probably someone you know,
ABW
Fife.
Spider-Man.
Right. He says, who would you like as the new head of the academy? Bergkamp, Warburton, who is the bloke who was just recently left Rangers, and I think he worked with the England youth setup, and Bobby Perez. Sophie, would you like either of those three, or have you got another idea?
I'm probably not as educated on this front in terms, maybe you guys have more of an insight to me in terms of, who might best fit the academy.
No, just make it up. We do.
We really don't.
Liverpool bought in Gerrard, right? And actually, since they bought in Gerrard at the beginning of the year, they've actually been a bit shy, which has been amazing. But I would love to see an ex-player come in, because the energy they can infuse, and the, you bring in someone who's a winner like Bergkamp. What a legend. I mean, oh gosh, I think that someone like him or Perez would make the most sense. They're inspiring. They have the history of the club. They've played at the highest level. And I think that bringing somebody like that in is going to inspire the youngsters coming through. So, yeah, I would vote for an ex-player, but one who's super smart, knows football, and has a history with the club. I like the idea of Perez or Bergkamp.
Ah, right. Fife, I'll come to you last, so you can not have a mouthful of whatever loveliness you're eating. Geoff, what's your answer on that question to our beloved Simon?
Yeah, I agree with Sophie, to be honest with you. I would love to think about the lift it would give if you got Dennis Bergkamp back at the club. And, no doubt he can still play a little bit. So to have him out on the football, on the training pitch as well, educating them youngsters, I just think it's a no-brainer, whether or not he'd want to take a step down, so to speak, from where he was, and take the youngsters. I don't know, but it sounds great. Let's do it.
Jace, have you got any idea, or do you want to make something up? Or let me guess, you want to bring in Peter Nicholas, Aaron Ramsey, and Reece Wilmot? God save Peter Nicholas.
No, to be honest, I totally agree with Dennis Bergkamp, but I'd have to quote Chris Carpenter's favourite line, have a caveat to it. Also bring in a young coach from outside of the club, because I think this is one of the things that we've fallen down on in recent years. People talk about bringing ex-players back. Well, that's fine, great. You have Dennis Bergkamp on the training pitch. God, if I met him now, I'd be a gibbering wreck. Okay, I would, him, Henry.
You're always a gibbering wreck.
Very true, Fifey. But another outside perspective and a young coach to develop, to take over when the time comes. I think, we talk a lot about progression plans and continuity plans at the Arsenal. We don't seem to have it. So if you're going to bring somebody like Bergkamp in, bring in somebody young as well to learn off him and to develop and to bring in fresh ideas again.
Fifey?
Yep, so my dinner's all finished. It was lovely. I went for Pera. I got a Deliveroo. Pera's on Upper Street, so if anyone's listening and they live in Islington, I'd recommend.
What sort of food is that? Kebab?
Turkish. No, yeah, she's mixed grilled kebabs and hummus and breads, and yeah, it's very nice.
I've not eaten yet today.
Bloody hell. You're going to devour 2 pots of Pringles, or?
I'm going to have 2 tins of tuna, 8 slices of bacon, and processed peas all in a big bowl. Carbs, no fat.
Danny's only been up an hour and a half, by the way.
That's his idea of breakfast. I wonder how many Arsenal fans would opt to want to have Wenger as the head of the youth development next season. But in all seriousness, I do actually tend to agree. I think that Bergkamp would be an excellent person, because the role itself, it seems to me, quite visionary and ambassadorial, in the sense that you don't need someone who's going to be on the pitch training with the kids every day, because you can have a catalogue of people there. You just, I don't want to repeat too much, but what Sophie said was bang on. You want someone that the kids are going to look up to and want to emulate, someone who's going to inspire them. And I think Bergkamp is that man.
And he won't need to fly.
He won't.
I agree with him. I've never flown, and I'm pushing 50, apparently. Right,
he won't turn up 8 pints down like some apparent former members of the coaching youth team staff. So,
Jesus.
Name no names.
Right, we have a question here for Sophie from Chris Carpenter, who is our long-haired lover from Plymouth. He has satin sheets and cowboy boots. That's easy to know.
Cock lover. Cock lover.
Yes, as in COQ. Don't put any of the rumours around. The man is a sexual tyrannosaurus.
God love him.
Right, shut up. He says, a simple one from me. Why football? What ignited your passion for the game and why? God, that's a podcast on its own.
Wow, isn't it just? It's my dad primarily growing up. I remember we were at a Greek wedding and I was really young. It was 1978 and it was a really close family member, and the World Cup final was on. And you know those old VWs, you know, the what do they call them? Yeah, the Beetle, but the one that you could put stuff in the back, like an estate, you know, like the old VW estates and stuff. My uncle threw in a TV in the back of that, and half the wedding was trying to squeeze into this VW to watch the final. And I just remember like falling in love with the entire occasion. My dad was a Manchester United fan. I wisely didn't follow in his footsteps. And then, you know, being in North London, it was a mix of, half my family are Spurs fans, half are Arsenal fans. I actually grew up really loving watching Liverpool play just because they were so good. And then there was an intervention by my cousins who sat me down and said, "What are you doing? You're supporting the wrong team. You're from London." And I wasn't supporting them. I was just enjoying watching them. And I just fell in love with the game. I fell in love with, you know, the way Brazil played. And I just think it's the best sport because there are times where it makes us so mad and it makes us so angry. But, you know, when you have moments like the Invincibles season or winning the double or, you know, even the excruciating England tournaments, losing out on penalties, there's something about the pain that just makes you believe that next time around it's going to be okay and you'll win again, or you just get up and you just keep watching and loving it. So a mix of my family, my dad, my cousins, and the World Cup from a real young age. And I just love it. I hate it when it's an international break, and I love it. I'm an addict.
Did the success of the Arsenal women's team ever attract you at all, or never really?
Yeah, I've actually had the pleasure of interview, and I was really happy to see Heather O'Reilly go there because I'd interviewed Heather a few times here, having followed the US women's national team and did a lot of stuff with them when they won the World Cup, and their success at the Olympics as well with their gold medals and stuff. And it looks like Carly Lloyd's going to Manchester City as well. But I've loved following them and watching them, and the women's game, the way the World Cup is actually helping it grow at a grassroots level. And, you know, spending time with people like Alex Morgan as well, who's now at Lyon. I think it's really great to see that. Unfortunately, at club level here in the US, the women's game hasn't expanded and hasn't had that support. I think it's just a case of money and sponsorship once they can, you know, figure some of those bits out. But yeah, it's great to see the game grow, for the women, and to see Arsenal ladies do so well is amazing too. It just adds another layer to, I dare I say the word brand, but we're a global brand, Arsenal Football Club. It's like when you see the Golden Arches at McDonald's, it's like, there it is. You know, it's always, it's something that is beautiful to see here from the day I moved here to now. You know, it's Arsenal, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Manchester United. You know, they're the most well-known clubs, obviously Bayern Munich, and everybody else in English football is trying to catch up, which is why teams like City and Spurs and a lot of other teams are trying to come over here to the US, is just to try and keep up. So I love it. It's the best sport in the world. It really is. Whether it's painful or delightful, I love it.
Good. Right. This is a very long one via email from Hayden. Right, so take me a second to read through it. It says, similar to last season, we have struggled offensively in the transition from defence to attack as a result of Cathola's absence. Ozil is having to drop deeper to create chances, and we lack cohesion and miss the added creativity that Cathola gave us. That's not easy when you've got a tooth missing. Therefore, it would be wise to suggest that Ozil is reliant on Cathola's presence in the starting 11. So his question is, in your opinion, which player in our team is the most reliant on another player being there? I'll give that one to Fifey because he's good when it comes to stuff like this.
So who's
Don't
most,
you dare make me fucking repeat that.
Which player is most reliant on someone else being there so that they look good?
Well, yeah, look good, play good, help the team, all of that lot. As in, I suppose the opposite would be Monreal doesn't need Iwobi there because Iwobi does fuck all to make him look good.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because at the minute we're not really linking up that well as a team. And you know, in recent years, you would have said, right, Henry needs Bergkamp to look at his absolute best, or even, you know, defensively, you could pick out the two centre backs. But at the minute, we're not. This season, you know, last year you could say that Monreal and Sanchez down the left look great together, but this year we're really not. There's not too many. Like even Bayer and Walcott individually, they'll have good games at different times, but you don't see them clicking so much. I do think. You know, I know Jake is going to go fly off the handles here, but we have seen when Mustafi doesn't have Koscielny next to him, he completely loses sight, I think, of rational defending. You know, and obviously, I think, you know, some of the best defenders in the world next to Gabriel would look awful. But you know stuff like, you know, that Bayern game, the away game when Mustafi starts shouting at Bayern and he's so focused on shouting at Bayern he doesn't realise Lewandowski's running behind him and scored. You know, there is stuff where I think Mustafi, there's the potential there to be a very good defender, and I don't want to coat him off too much because I think he's the best centre back we've bought in a long time, probably since Koscielny. But you do see that there are a lot of fundamental errors in his game. You know. Obviously, there are some when Koscielny plays, but I do think there's a fewer number of mistakes made by him when Koscielny's, and I do think they are starting to grow a partnership. And you know, let's be honest and let's be fair. Koscielny did take a good 2, maybe even 3 seasons before we started seeing the best out of him. And you know, Mustafi, if I'm not mistaken, is still only 24. So for a centre back, that's pretty young. So I do think Mustafi does rely, and I do think the progression of his game will to some degree depend on the partnership he can develop with Koscielny over the next few seasons, and then we'd like to see him become the kind of the heartbeat of our defence and step it up and become the new Koscielny, if that makes sense.
Right, I'll move on to the next question then. It is from Nicky Wilson, always sends us in lots of decent questions. He says, this will go to you, Geoff. You ready? He says, what are Arsene Wenger's good qualities as a football manager, and are they still as effective as they were in 1996? Is Alexis still bringing players to his level, like Bergkamp did, or is he now putting them down and playing for himself?
Well, the Alexis is a tough one, isn't it? To be honest with you, I've been a little bit disappointed with Alexis. I know he's a fantastic footballer. I still think he's undroppable. But, you know, him sulking and stuff, it's clearly sulking for whatever reason. I think that's wrong. I think he's a big part of the football team. And I think he could do a lot better. I think he should concentrate much more on keeping possession of the football in the final third, because again, he's done it since he's been with us. He keeps on giving the ball away in key areas. We're a possession football team, and we keep on probing and little triangles and diagonal balls, right? It keeps on giving the ball away, and it's so vital that he cuts that out of his game, because he's the top scorer and stuff like that, and he's a fantastic player. But he could be so much better for Arsenal, and I think, you know, he should concentrate, get his head down, concentrate on that rather than coming up with all this other shit that's apparently happening. Wenger, I think he's a fantastic coach. I think he's like Sophie said earlier on, it revolutionised the Premier League or the English game, and I think he revolutionised Arsenal. He didn't build the club. We all know he didn't build the club. Arsenal was a massive club before Wenger came, but he definitely took us on to the next level, a couple of levels. We're now world-renowned. We're world-renowned before, but when, you know, everyone knows about Arsenal now. Our brand of football is fantastic. It wasn't before. We was a little bit dull and dreary and 1-0 and blah, blah, blah. So I think he's been a fantastic football coach. I still think he's a fantastic football coach. I don't buy all this stuff that's going on about him. He's washed up and he's this and he's that. Every single manager in the business makes mistakes. You look at Pep, he's not really firing at the moment at Manchester City. You look at Klopp, he's not really pulling any trees up. Let's be honest, right? There's all the managers all over. It's such a ferocious game nowadays that you can make mistakes. But, he makes less than others.
Well, there you go. That's superbly put. Potty Mouth, Neil and Nikki have both asked us questions about the protest. That's not something we want to get into because each to their own, I think, is the best way. And we don't like to pick sides. Right, this is one is for you, Sophie. It's two questions from two people on the same subject. Omar says, what's the most effective, in brackets, and realistic way the fans can force Stan Kroenke to sell the club? Fans both local and abroad. And AB Guna, on the same theme, says, what kind of offer would Stan Kroenke entertain for his shares? Double or triple? Or what would it take for him to sell? And then he's put in brackets an exodus. Being in America, you probably are aware of his other franchises and the fact that he doesn't give a shit about most things, let alone football, unless it's money.
Yeah, he's a money man, and what he's doing here in LA with the LA Rams, it's all about money. With other teams coming into LA as well, utilizing the stadium that he's building. Moving the team from St. Louis to LA. He's a businessman, and as long as Arsenal is a profitable business for him, I don't see him selling. And I don't think fans can. When was the last time fans forced an owner? There's only been one time I've seen it in my time in sports, and it was really what happened with the LA Clippers after the owner of the LA Clippers made those awful comments, racist comments that went a little bit much more beyond sports, I should say. And other owners in the NBA forced him to sell the team. And there's a different setup in American sports. Owners are like they have so much power. They're like a union in themselves, and if there's a majority vote, they're able to make things happen. I think unless fans have a huge ownership in the club, I just don't see how that can happen. And unfortunately, or fortunately, because you can look at it from two sides of the coin, we've been very successful when it comes to finances. We invested heavily in the stadium. And, the club did promise that once, those debts were paid, we'd see that investment go into the team. And, that started with a big purchase of Cazorla, and it followed the following year with Ozil. And we've seen Sanchez come to the club. And so you have to ask yourself, when you look at the fiscal plan and then you look at the long-term plan, are Arsenal kind of on track with what they wanted to do before they left Highbury? You could say yes. But unfortunately, with things going so pear-shaped on the pitch, it's forcing fans to look at the business model that we have. Every club needs a business model. And, when you look at some other clubs and the debt that they have versus where we're at financially, we're in a really healthy situation. So I can't see fans forcing Kroenke out. I don't know what you guys think about that. I just don't think that's realistic.
Well, you've seen what Charlton are doing, where they're owned by a Belgian bloke, and they're actually going over to where he lives in Belgium and his club over there to protest Fife.
I mean, on this, I think you're right, Sophie. In terms of forcing Kroenke out, in my opinion, it's just not going to happen, and it's ludicrous to think that it will. And I think Steve, Lord Hillwood, our pod's very own, who, in fairness to him, he does a pod a day, but just by himself in our WhatsApp group, he refuses to type. Bless him. He made the very good point. Stan Kroenke, he literally turned around to the governors and the mayors of St. Louis and said, "Fuck you." He said to the supporters, "Fuck you." He said to all of the stakeholders of St. Louis, "Fuck you," and he moved the Rams to LA, and there were so many levels of people. He said, "I don't give a shit what you think, and I'm going to do exactly what I want to do." That he did it, and he just moved them. And I don't think that how we've seen people, like things like the Black Scarf movement, for example, which when it first started, obviously very much positioned itself as an anti-board movement. I think, the noise coming from those guys and a lot of the activity has kind of calmed down in the last 2 or 3 years. And maybe some of that is because people are now just kind of coming to the impression that, they can't see any change being happening. They don't know what's going to happen. Well, they're just apathetic to the situation. Stan Kroenke, the value of the shares that he bought them at, a lot of, you can dispute when. A lot of them were probably bought around the £12,000 mark, 10 to 12. Most of them are now worth, 16k. I think if you look at Arsenal's current market capitalisation, it's now about £1.1 billion, of which he owns nearly 70%. So a guy that is worth $7.5 million. About between 1/5 and a quarter of his wealth is tied up in Arsenal, and the fact that Arsenal are actually now a net debt. They have very little net debt, and by that I mean. You use their cash and minus the outstanding debt, which is all obviously in the stadium, and they're only about 30 million net debt, which means that in terms of leverage, Arsenal give him an insane amount of leverage when he wants to go and do stuff like buy a big ranch in Texas or invest in St. Louis Rams in their infrastructure, because he says to the bank, right, these are my assets, this is the net debt position, actually we're quite cash rich. So the bank says, okay, we'll give you X loan, and that X loan will be less, you have to pay less interest on that because you're actually a safe bet. And so trying to get him to move is just going to be so difficult. And it's one of those where he's the majority shareholder, unless someone comes in with such an offer that it gazumps what the leverage position he currently gets from owning those shares. We're not going to see much change here for quite some time.
Yeah, I agree. See, the problem is that when we signed up for this financial fair play, everything looked like it was going to go right in our favour. But since around about a year ago, that was more or less dead in the water. We've got to a situation now, in my honest opinion, that unless Kroenke stumps up the money or he ships himself out, he moves on. I think that it doesn't matter who you bring in, whatever manager you bring in, to sustain it for the continuation of us being, challenging in inverted commas or being up there trying to challenge, nothing will change. I think it was different in the old days when Wenger came in. He brought those fantastic players in. He had all of that French market and the African market, had it all sewn up. That was then. Then Chelsea came in and the money started pouring in. TV money started pouring in with the Premier League being so obviously good to watch. Mansour, he then come in, changed the game completely. It's amazing what they're doing up there. We just unfortunately cannot compete on the same level with purchasing the top quality players that don't lose their head, that when you do like against Bayern, you concede a penalty, right? They don't lose it completely. They'll pull everyone together and power on like we had back in the old days. And until we get that proper solid investment to join them. If you can't beat them, join them, mate. We tried the FFP. It was all right. We was tinkering away. Unfortunately, now we've got to a point. We need proper investment. We need to go and give the 250 and 300,000 pounds a week to the top players, and give the 50, 60, 70 million pounds. 350 grand a week apparently he's getting at Man United. Zlatan. What a player, though. What a player. It's worth the money, because then they can afford it. Until it changes, until we get that investment in, I don't care who manages. I don't think it's going to change.
Combined with that, okay, you look, FFP failed due to the big Premier League deal. All of a sudden, the Premier League clubs, every Premier League club is in the top 30, 40 richest clubs in the world. So, UEFA had to do something to combat that, okay? So FFP comes in, ends that. The money that Abramovich and Mansour have chucked into their clubs is unbelievable. But if you're looking at it from a perspective of, killing the club, stagnation and stuff like that, look at the Venkies at Blackburn. Okay, look at sort of what's happened to Leeds United over the years. That's where clubs are being killed. Okay. For all that you guys may not like the way Stan Kroenke runs this club, the club makes money. Yes, maybe he could invest more in players. Yes, maybe our corporate income should be higher from our advertising, etc. But the club is in a healthy state. Okay, we're not dying as a club. We're not stagnating as an entity. So that, first of all, has to be acknowledged. Okay, on the football side of it, all depending on your perspective, there's people on both sides of the coin who will be pro-Wenger, anti-Wenger, etc. But from a Stan Kroenke perspective, he may not be the greatest owner in the world, but he's not the worst either. Okay? And to be honest with you, he owns the club. Unless you've got the fucking money to stump up and buy it off him, it's a non-starter. 5 feet. Do you want to say something on that?
I'm happy to hear what Danny has to hear, actually. I don't think Danny's spoken in a while, or Sophie on that one.
Go on, Danny. Look, I think with Kroenke, I think you guys have all hit the nail on the head. He's not the worst. He's not the best. It could be a much graver situation. As long as we qualify for Champions League football, he'll be vested in the club. He'll be happy with the club running the way it is. I mean, this is a guy who owns the Denver Nuggets, the Colorado Avalanche, the Colorado Rapids. He even owns a lacrosse team, and he owns the Los Angeles Rams, which he wants to become the Dallas Cowboys. They're going through a transition period. They just hired a really young coach from the Washington Redskins. Their number one pick in the NFL draft last year was a bit of a bust. They're looking to make some major moves in this period before the draft in April. So this is a sports guy. He knows business, and he's in it for the long haul, I think, with Arsenal. I don't think this is a guy that's going to walk away from the club. Would we want him to invest a little bit more so we can see the transition on the pitch? Absolutely. I think that's where fans, if he was investing in at least 2 marquee players every summer and then tinkering a little bit in January to make sure that we're still in it, and, if we're suffering a little bit in the league, or, if we're in the Champions League, just to make sure that the team has depth and strength, I don't think fans would be complaining. But because things haven't been going so well on the pitch in the last couple of years, it's a glaring issue now with the ownership. And I think that, winning the FA Cup back-to-back, I think helped Arsene Wenger. I think it helped the board. I think it helped the club a lot, because you can't argue with that. To me, the FA Cup is still a magical trophy. I love that we've won that. I would love for us to win it again this year. But we all know that, 17, 18 seasons in the Champions League, only going to one final, getting knocked out in the round of 16. This is where Arsenal fans have a beef. We need to invest in the team in order to compete at that highest level. And until we do that, there's always going to be calls for Kroenke to kind of sell the club or for a change to happen.
Spot on.
That is some superb. We've been going 2 hours now. The only thing I'd have to say on that is money is Stan's oxygen. Deprive him of the money and he'll leave. And the only way we're going to do that is not be in the Champions League, not win any cups, and just have seasons of shit. But then it's guaranteed. Wenger goes, the next bloke is on a hiding to nothing. So can't win.
Dan, this is the point, okay? In order for him to go, you've got to wish ill on the football club.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
you can't do that.
It's pointless. Next question.
Just got to say sorry to Fred Thurbin. He sent in 2 questions in 2 weeks, and both have been brilliant, but we don't have time for them. This one's for you, Jace. It is Nobus says, get an echo again, Jace.
Sorry.
No, you're not sorry. You don't care. You're a bad man. He says, he says, Noma, who I've asked if she'd like to come on one time for a radio show, and she said yes.
Cool.
Ooh, there you go. She's in sunny Holland, Netherlands. I don't know, whichever one. She says, do you think Wenger has lost the dressing room or part of it? A lot of them don't seem to be that bothered with the results. And also, James Storm 924 says, is Wenger underachieving or no longer overachieving? So there you go, a mixture of those two.
I truly don't know if he's lost the dressing room. I don't think he has. You saw kind of Pear's reaction the other day when he was asked about that, and he just laughed. I don't think he has. I do think there's confusion in what he's tried to achieve this year. And I think there's an issue there. With regards, as Sophie just said, regarding Champions League, he's underachieved. Yes. By Christ, he should have won that. He should have won that twice with the teams we've had. But even our great teams failed in Europe, if you know what I mean. So the last 10 years, in comparison to the Vieira Henry days, you're on hiding to nothing. You're not, if the teams you've had over the last 4, 5, 6 years would have won the Champions League, I'd be massively shocked. And I'm the most positive guy at the beginning of the season. Every year, I think we'll win the league. But it's difficult, isn't it? When you're outside looking in, we have a fan's perspective. Okay. And, there's 5 of us on this podcast. We will have 5 different perspectives on every single issue. We may agree on certain things and disagree on many other things. When you're in there, when you're playing, it's difficult. You're in the bubble. You don't really see, okay, you hear the fans and what have you, but you're concentrating on what your objective is. I don't think he's lost the dressing room. I do think he's underachieved. We should have won the title last season.
Right, okay. We're running out of time here, so just got a couple of quick things. So this one, okay, I'll give you this one to you, Geoff. Answer it as quick as you can. This is from Billy AFC. If Alexis leaves, do you think any big names will come to Arsenal during the summer transfer window?
They're looking at big names already, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Chris put a little bit in our WhatsApp group today, which is interesting. Right, this is another really good one. I'll give this one to.
Can we just say sorry? Just on potential players, I've just put a link in the chat here. Lacazette has scored an absolute wonder goal tonight. He's banged one in from about 35 yards into the top corner, and it's not even moved. It's just flown in straight. And bloody hell, we've not seen a goal like that at the Emirates for a long time.
That's against Szczesny's Roma, and Roma were 2-1 up at one point, and then that goal made it 4-2 to Leon.
If you're listening to this and you haven't seen the Lacazette goal, just find it. Trust me.
Go have a look. It's Chris is having kittens over it. He's made a mess of his silk sheets.
Chris doesn't even rate French football, does he?
I don't think he even likes it. He's a fan of Spanish football.
He's actually got a Ligue 1 T-shirt saying Ligue 1, feed the league.
Yep, he certainly does. But this is a really good question from someone who had no followers on Twitter. From Loki, which is my favourite character in Vikings. I just finished season 4 on that. Fucking series, not season. Seasons are times of year, you fucking tools. Right, from Loki 71. So this one will be for Sophie. He says, do you think that we should know by now if Wenger's staying or going, as it just encourages mongs and idiots to embarrass us all? And he follows that up with, between titles, in brackets, including multi-winning spells of 2 or more, we have waited 44 years, 11 years, 19 years and 18 years. Are we up to par historically? Wow. Good luck with those two.
In a nutshell, no. I don't think it serves any purpose for him to announce that he's leaving or staying at this point in the season. There's 11 games left in the Premier League. We're out of the Champions League. We're going for the FA Cup. What purpose does that serve right now? And we all know that we've underachieved in the Premier League and the Champions League. Do we want to win it? Of course we do. So, but I don't see how it serves the team for him to let people know that he's leaving at the end of the season. I don't get that at all.
And are we up to par historically? Because we had Gav on, and I mean Geoff was around, and I think Jason was around. Not sure about Mr. Fife, but I remember when I first got into football, Arsenal gone 18 years without the title, and I wasn't overly bothered about it then. Back then, it's just we just got used to it.
I think we're one of the top teams in England. We've won trophies over the years, so. Have we underachieved lately? Yes, in the big tournaments, but I don't think we've underachieved over the years. We're one of the most successful clubs, not only in England, but in all of football. I mean, when you talk about top teams, Arsenal's up there, right? Over the years, you've obviously Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, Bayern, Manchester United, Manchester City, and Chelsea's new history, new money. We are part of the history of football. Big difference, I think.
Fife.
I'm very scared because I just turned around and my girlfriend's got a face mask on and she looks like a Smurf.
Does it look like Lady Smurf or Papa Smurf? That's the thing we need to know.
It's Lady Shaw.
No, the only thing I would say is actually, I think Sophie made a very good point there, and the question's good. And the one thing I would say is, and I think it's true. And I was saying this in the group, and I know me and Steve and Jace were chatting as we do all day long. But one phrase I always like to use is perception is reality. And people, and yes, obviously historically we're one of the biggest teams, and that also historically has been periods where we've gone for a long time without winning. But the reality is the perception, and you can't just say because Arsenal didn't win the league for 18 years in the 50s, we shouldn't expect to know it. The thing is, you wouldn't look at a company's financial results today, which is, say, 30 years old, and say, well, 10 years ago, their revenue was only 20 million. Why are we upset today when their revenue at 300 million drops down to 28? That's not how it works. The perception is reality. And in the modern day climate, Arsenal are a much bigger club than what they used to be, as Geoff said. And yes, we are very lucky, actually, in a sense that Wenger's helped us develop that new perception. The reality is, under Wenger, we have become a bigger club, and the expectations are there. And we should be fortunate and lucky for that. But at the same time, he's also set the expectations higher. The new reality is, last year was a failure. Coming second, and coming second actually was one of the worst things. People made a big deal about coming second ahead of Spurs, and the reality is, a lot of people then said, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. And as we've seen, Spurs are pulling away from us again this year. And the reality is, actually, last year was an absolute clusterfuck, because by November, all of our major rivals were out of the title race apart from us. And then because we fucked it up again, and I think Giroud and Sanchez between them got about 2 goals between January and March, we let Spurs back in ahead of us, and it just wasn't good enough. And I do think that people are right at the minute to feel a bit disappointed, and I do think that we really need to start to pick up again, because we have and I think Sophie said, as she said, winning the 2 FA Cups back to back has helped Wenger. Actually, whilst at the top, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from the FA Cup. What I would say objectively, though, is looking outside in, I think Wenger's rating amongst fans now, I think, and you can disagree all you like, you guys, please feel free. I think Wenger's rating as amongst fans is lower now than the season before we won the FA Cup. Honestly, I think now if you ask people whether they want Wenger in or out, the disparity, and it may still be more than in than out, I don't know, but I think that the disparity between the two is certainly not what it used to be. And whether now there's still more than less, but there's more less than what there were before, or there's now even more less than there remain, I do think he's now getting to the point where people do want that change. And that's not me trying to put my own views on it, but I do think that we need to, stop looking at the history of the club and actually start assessing ourselves on what, and Wenger can come out in the press and say, don't judge me on 2 years, judge me on 20 years. We unfortunately, that's not how football managers are looked upon. And it is a cliche, but football is a results business. And unfortunately, the results have been, not quite what you'd expect from Arsenal in the last few years. And we do need to see some improvement there.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one of the things as well, if you look at last season, I've harped on about this, I don't know how many times. When in a summer transfer window, you bring in one keeper, no outfield players, you re-sign Mikel Arteta, who has a history of injury problems, you re-sign Tom Strzelecki, history of injury problems, you've made your own bed. Right, that's the end of questions. I've got one
one statement from Lee Dempster. What happens next year when the pod is on? We're in the Europa League playing on a Thursday. I'll have something to watch while you lot are chatting like old women. Quick thank you to John O, Elliot, Josh Daw, Hoppy Hopkins, and Johnny Boy for sending in questions that we didn't get a chance to answer or argue.
Right, brilliant. Thank you to everybody who's sent in questions. Fantastic. We really appreciate it.
You see what Geoff's just put?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Hey, I'm a pro. Go on.
Shut the fuck up.
Oi, get your headphones on.
Sorry. Okay, let's have it then. I'm going to start with you, Danny. Arsene Wenger to leave at the end of the season or stay?
Yep, leave, win the FA Cup, beat Spurs 9-0 in the final.
Brilliant. Andrew Fife.
What was the question?
Arsene Wenger to leave Arsenal at the end of the season or stay?
I think it's time now for him to respectfully step down. But I'm not going to sit here and scream, and I haven't once said this season I think Wenger should leave. I'm sceptical, but I do think now it would be nice and a healthy period for him to respectfully move down.
Okay. Sophie?
Yeah, I've had meltdown, breakdown moments with Wenger. I've been harsh on him in the last year and a half for sure. And there's moments where I have kind of let history dictate my emotions, but it's time for change. I do believe that, and I think the club and the fans deserve a little bit better than what we're getting right now.
Okay, brilliant, Geoff.
2 more years, mate. You know the rules.
Sweet. Okay, right.
What did you say, Jace? What was your answer?
I've said it before. I think it's time. But if he signs a 10-year contract to upset some of the cunts out there, I'd be overjoyed.
Imagine the nervous breakdowns.
The heart attacks, the strokes. Fuck them all. You know, I'm not being funny. Show the man a bit of respect. As everybody on this podcast does. You know, you can want him to go, fine. I ain't got a problem with it. I feel the same way.
But if it was Carpenter...
Carpenter out. Right.
Can I just make a point? Yeah, and I was probably going to add about 3 or 4 minutes to the podcast. So if you need that that shit, then please fast forward now to the song. One thing I said in the pod is, and it's one thing I've been saying. You know, we were talking about it in the group, and what I would say is, you know, people are so obsessed with, you know, whether someone's an AKB or a WOB. And I think I was talking the other day about the game, and actually what triggered this conversation most for me is, you know, on Sunday night, the story broke about Sanchez. I think it was about 7 p.m. 4 or 5 journalists all get this one story from Sanchez, and clearly they've been briefed by someone, and apparently it wasn't the club. And I'm guessing it was perhaps, you know, either Ramsey or Koscielny's agent looking at it. But regardless, it happens, and then all of a sudden, all the people on the, you know, the extreme AKB side start saying the exact same thing, and all the extreme people on the WOB side start saying the exact same thing. And so, you know, and obviously the AKB start attacking Sanchez, and you're like, well, hold on a minute. And then all the WOBs use it as another stick to beat Wenger. And what I kind of saying in the group is, it's just so fucking boring. It's honestly like watching Question Time, or it's just so political now that it's like, you know, as I said, made the analogy, let's just say, for example, a hospital in Surrey closes down, and the local Tory MP comes out and he says, and he gives a couple of lines, and you're like, oh Christ, that was quite quick and witty. But then the health secretary, who's also a Tory, comes out and says the exact same thing. You're like, well, that's a bit odd. Why are they saying the same thing? And then you realise it's the PR spin doctors and the whips that are telling them to say this. And then, you know, the opposing Labour MP comes out with some witty line. And on Question Time that week, the Tory, the Labour health secretary, you know, shadow secretary comes out and uses the exact. And you're like, fucking hell, obviously these guys are literally just parroting and using verbatim the same. And I find that people on both sides of us are so political and so drawn into their trenches because these people have no other existence in their life than whether it's, you know, being an AKB or a WOB. I think it was Darren Berry who said it best, that, you know, when Wenger finally does leave, these guys behind their keyboards are going to look up and realise their family left 3 years ago. But what I would say is people can respectfully want Wenger to leave the club, or people can respectfully want him to remain without being an ardent AKB or a WOB. And I think I think, as you said, Jace, the brilliant thing about this pod and us as guys is that we all have different opinions. Chris obviously has his opinions, and we have ours, and likewise we can all get on. And what we do is we appreciate that other people can have opinions different to ours but still get on. And what I think is really bad about not just, you know, Arsenal, but look at society with stuff like Brexit, people in these extreme views can't comprehend that someone different to them can have a completely different view, and people becoming so frothingly angry at the mouth that, you know, it's just a horrible place. I want to go on Twitter to have a laugh. I want to get away and have a bit of a break from the, you know, the crushing reality of working in capitalist London. I don't want to have to see some, you know, angry men debating all the time on my Twitter feed between, you know, the career of one guy. And it's almost, you know, damning that we've got to the stage that even if someone shows, you know, a remote bit of, you know, disappointment at a decision, they get labelled a WOB. Or if someone, you know, comes out and says, actually, I think, you know, all like, as you know, Geoff said earlier, all managers make mistakes, and it's a balanced view, right? And then you automatically get coated as an AKB. I think we just lost sight of balance here so much. For me, someone who wants Wenger to leave, if it's their own opinion and they formulate that opinion, I wouldn't think of them as a WOB. Someone to me who's a WOB is someone who really has, you know, no other purpose in life, that they want to be part of this, you know, this specific group, and they're willing to, you know, parrot out their own account just to be part of that. And the same goes to the AKB side. And it's really got to the point now where, you know, the fun out of support in Arsenal is at an all-time low, not just because of what's happening on the pitch, but off the pitch as well. Christ alive. Every time I log in, it's just depressing.
Well said. I think that the sad thing about it is the actual message people are trying to make gets lost in the anger. People are too far down the rabbit hole, and unfortunately, the cohesive points they make just get lost in it.
What I would say is, and this might sound extreme, but in society, when people lose sight of the fact that other people can have a different opinion to them, that is when you have fascism. I
get people on Twitter, they'll ask me my opinion, right? I'll give them my opinion, an honest opinion, and then I get the fucking life coated out of me. And I think to myself, what is the point?
And that's just from us, Geoff.
But I don't know. Maybe they're bullied by their missus or their boyfriend or whatever, and so they've got to come on and kick the shit out of me. I don't know.
Or both.
But what I would say in balance, so I would say that whilst I haven't joined in any protests and I'm not trying to hand anger, I do think people who are protesting are well within their right to do so. And I would say, but likewise, people who want to sing One Arsene Wenger in the ground as much as they want to also likewise well within their right to do so. I just think that when people are so extreme in their view that they think that people shouldn't be allowed to protest, or they think that people shouldn't be allowed to, when you hear the line, if you still want Wenger in, you're part of the problem, all that kind of stuff. I think when you hear that, it's just like, come on, lads, it's football. Like, it's literally football. Let's just have a laugh, have a bit of banter, and get on with it.
I couldn't agree more, Paul. I think the truth of the matter is, you have a right to believe in whatever you want. You have a right to say it whatever you want. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's when people try to delegitimize the opposing opinion, it just loses it. That's it. Right. We're on to predictions. It's Lincoln in the Cup on Saturday. Danny the GFP, you cheating bastard.
Raj got it 100% right.
No. You're top of the league on cheating. What's your prediction for this week?
I'll just change it to whatever it was, but I'm going to go 4-0 Wilcott. Remember, we've in the last 7 games, we've won 2, lost 5, scored 9, conceded 18, and one of those wins was against a non-league team. So in the conference, we're okay. We're bound to win against a conference team. No worries there, people.
Dude, we've been going for 2 hours, 20-odd minutes, okay?
Actually, that's bloody you and Fife telling everyone your fucking life story.
So it is. Oh, Sophie, you're a witch. Honestly. Sophie in 80 degrees California. What's your prediction for this week?
I think the little Lincoln City happy train comes to an end. Do not mind the gap and all that. I fancy a real bounce back for us, a nice traditional FA Cup David and Goliath thrashing. I'm going to go 4-1. Maybe 5-1, and everything will be rosy for a week or 2. I actually think this is a really great time for us to turn the season around and get back on track. And I hope that we can pull it together and that we win and line up a tasty semi-final against one of the big guns.
Who's going to be our first scorer?
I'm going to go with a header from. Why not? Is Koscielny going to be banned now? Is he banned for this game?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna have Captain Fantastic bounce back with a header, our first goal. Why not?
Sweet. Andrew Fife.
I'm going to go 3-1 Arsenal. Apparently, Lincoln have got a big boger up front who's going to cause us problems. Although I'm going to potentially take my girlfriend to her third ever game, and we don't seem to play too well when we play. And she's also from Lincolnshire, unfortunately, so it's her local club. Shah, are you coming to the Arsenal game on Saturday? Yeah, we're definitely going to lose. So sorry, listeners, we've lost.
First scorer.
First scorer, Theo Walcott.
Great, Geoff.
I think this has come at an absolute perfect time for Arsenal. We just need it, don't we? We need a little bit of a respite, so to speak. I think it'll be comfortable. 3-0. I will go for. I think he'll put out a strong team. Alexis.
Sweet. I'm going for 7-0 to the Arsenal.
That's why you're bottom, Jace.
Exactly. And I tell you who's gonna score. Mustafi's gonna score first.
That's not the first time you've picked that. Wasn't it 7-0 against Bayern you picked?
No, 4-0.
Oh, there you go.
Look, that's who I am. Okay, I never bet against my team. Okay, shout outs, Danny.
Right, the bloke I mentioned earlier, he has got no followers on Twitter apart from us, and so that is LOWKI71. And by the looks of one of his tweets from a couple of years ago, he's only done about 10. First game, 1981, the FC Winter Slag UEFA Cup, 10 years old, Miss Highbury. They don't want me at the Emirates anymore. Don't feel happy there anyway. So there you go. He's an old miserable gooner like the rest of us.
I'm following him.
So there you go, Loki. And he sent you a couple of decent questions. But the only bad thing is the only people he's following is AFTV, but we're not going to mention anything about that. Each to their own.
Oh, fair enough. Andrew Fife.
My shout out is it. So after the game, actually, I left after the fourth goal. I've never left early in my life, but I was so hurt. I just couldn't even watch it. I got to the pub and I said to a guy in front of me, he was watching the game. I said, "What was the fifth goal like, mate?" And he said, "I know, I left at the third," which is a bit of a joke. And then we were in the pub. My dad and I had a couple of pints after the game, and a big table of a big group of 8 Bayern fans came in, which I thought was quite ballsy for Bayern fans coming out. So I was like, no problem. I had a little joke with them. I jokingly told them how lucky they got that night, and they just laughed. And my shout outs to them, because on the way out, I jokingly told the bouncer that there was a big group of Bayern fans and they're causing trouble. So, so I don't know what happened to them, but yeah, my shout out. So I thought the Bayern fans were brilliant. People were getting really annoyed with them throwing toilet paper on the pitch, but I think people have to make a stand in football against ticket prices. So fair play to them.
Sweet. Sophie.
My shout outs to you guys. I've had a blast. This has been epic.
Brilliant. I'm enjoying it. Geoff.
You know what? I think it's only fair that we've got to give our fantastic guest this evening, Sophie Nicolau. Her is at Soccer Diva. Go follow her on Twitter. I think she's been brilliant tonight. Well done, Sophie. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Make sure you get the right Sophie Nicolau, as we've discovered earlier.
Soccer Diva. Definitely.
Excuse me, lads. Who's fucking hosting this car crash?
and I think we should probably have Sophie back again, because we have a very, very few women.
Can we kick Chris out? Can we replace her with Chris?
Oh, not a problem. Chris is out. Can't be out. My shout
Shams just said she'll come on. She's been to see Arsenal play at Highbury in the Emirates. Who's your favourite Arsenal player? No, you can't fucking come on. Get fucked. Jace.
Right, my shout outs to James. He used to be James Seal. It's at Lossless.
Oh, he's brilliant.
Yeah, he's a great follow. At LOSSLESS. He's funny as hell.
He's our number one South Korean gooner in New York. And
he keeps on taking a piss out of me, the bar steward. Also, a quick shout to the Gooners in the USA. Thanks for having me on this week. And to Chris Carpenter. I've taken the piss out of him tonight, and he deserves it. But there you go. It's left for me to say thank you very much, Andrew Fife. You've been brilliant. Geoff Arsenal, you've been superb as always. Sophie, you have been absolutely fantastic. Give it a follow, guys. It's at Soccer Diva. It's been a pleasure having you on. I hope you've enjoyed.
I've loved it. It's been really cool. Thanks so much for having me on. Thank you.
So
Geoff's been here for 3 bloody hours.
Yeah. Geoff Arsenal bringing quality into the pod as usual. Danny, you can go fuck yourself.
And I would say thank you, but you have to be here because no one else wanted to do it.
I couldn't believe that earlier on. Every fucking time.
I know.
And thank you to the listeners. Thank you to everybody for sending questions. Thanks as always for the support. Please keep on giving likes to the YouTube page. Leave us a review on what's iTunes. Radio show after the Lincoln game on Saturday, and there'll be a blog out next week. Geoff Holifron's just mad for it at the moment. Thank you. Good night. God save the Arsenal. Take care.
It kind of felt like we'd rocked up.
Hold on.
Not looked
Five.
at their, I know it's a bit of a cliche now and people are used to
5. There's something up with your connection. You keep breaking up. Have you got your Ethernet plugged in?
No, I don't, because I'm on a Mac.
Don't they have a port?
Not the size of an Ethernet.
Apple bastards.
Okay, so that's Danny's choice in electrical suppliers. There you go.
I have to edit this bit out, Jace.
No, leave it in. Just leave it in.
Oh, no, there's lots of breaking up and stuff.
Leave it in. It's part of our charm. Okay, we're the clown section of Arsenal podcast. Let's embrace it.
Go for it.
Geoff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it Nicolau?
Yeah, Nicolau.
Didn't we have a player at Arsenal called that?
No, that's Nicolas Nelka. Fuck
No,
off, Danny.
Tiki Nicolau. We had? I'm sure we had one.
That's Nicky Lauda.
Was it?
He's a racing driver, but.
Have you got your headphones on properly, Jace? We don't keep getting feedback.
Of course I haven't.
No.
Stupid. Right, okay, you ready?
Nicky Nicolau. It was at Arsenal. It was at Arsenal until 2004, and we sold him to Southend.
Danny, you're doing my fucking tits in.
You shut your face just because you were wrong. I'm getting a bit of feedback on someone. Is it you, Jace? Hello?
Is it me?
Hello?
I'm getting feedback on you, Danny.
Yeah, true.
It's his beard. It's because his beard's as shit as John Welsh's.
Shouldn't be getting any feed. Boop, boop.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in a spaceship.
Unless this fucker has gone and changed my my settings.
No, you sound all right now.
Yeah, you sounded fine there.
Headset.
No, he's gone again.
No, what are you on there?
This is ground control to Major Dan.
Oh, mate, this is going to be a 12 o'clock coup, this.
Oh, shit, the bed.
Pour myself another mimosa.
Yeah. Oh, you're on the mimosas.
Totally. It's lunchtime here in California.
Oh, okay, look, I'm in Cardiff, okay? There's no need for that.
What's the weather like at the minute, Sophie?
Hot.
It's 81 today.
Oh, my God. That sounds great.
Fuck my life.
Jace, I'm getting feedback from somebody. I heard it when Sophie was talking. Jace, mute yourself.
Okay, I'm on mute now.
Hello?
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 Yeah, it's Jason, isn't it?
Jason, yeah.
Fucking hell,
Jace.
Jace.
Jason.
Put your headset on properly and put the microphone further down. Have you got it by the top of the ear thing again?
Of course, it's hanging off the back. Right, is that better?
Hello? Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Say
Hello?
something, Sophie.
Should we say
This
something
prep
more than
itself
hello?
should be recording.
Yeah, there you go, Jace. It was because you ain't got your fucking headset on properly because you're trying to be wiggity whack with your back to front baseball cap. You're not 14. Get on with it. And you don't know where I live, do you?
I do.
Do you live in God Manchester?
Oh, don't say that! Jace will find me and kill me. Right, 8:04. Whenever you're ready, Jace.
Hello, and for fuck's sake.